record onto this computer because it's always nice to do the podcast afterwards. So just waiting for YouTube to open up. We'll do our little welcome, and then I'll have to share the link in the YouTube. The new YouTube link will get shared to the old YouTube link because this is how this is working now. So let's just do that real quick. Welcome everyone. Hash Church 3.0, episode 16. Just adding the link to the YouTube link so you guys can all pop over to the proper chat. And I will also quickly head over to the Discord Hash Church link that I have up as well, and we will add it up into there as well if anyone wants to watch YouTube over there. Okay. There we are. Welcome, gentlemen. Welcome, Wade Laughter. Welcome, Etienne Fontaine. How are you guys doing this morning?
Groovy and good.
About the same. Groovy and good.
Excellent, excellent. Well, we got a small group in here today, but I'm sure eventually we'll end up with a few more peeps. I never know if the emails send properly or if sometimes I think I've sent out invitations to people and they haven't actually been sent out. So I'll just in case go back through my Outlook. Yeah, well, I guess it's Microsoft Outlook, and make sure that I resend that email so that everyone is indeed going to be here.
So I'm pretty excited for a couple of reasons today. One, we're supposed to get our Emerald Cup samples today. So I'm judging cartridges, so I'm really excited to see everything and what's there this year. And the other reason I'm excited is my business as well as cannabis was deemed not only essential, it was put up to the top of the list for COVID-19. And so I just called Kaiser, and Friday I was able to go down and get my first vaccine shot from Pfizer for COVID-19. So I was pretty stoked and excited, and more than excited for my people and anyone in the cannabis industry, especially dispensaries, frontline workers, can actually go get your vaccines now. So you can actually call and make it happen. So call your provider. Mine was Kaiser. You can call Blue Cross, whoever, and you don't have to show your ID card. You don't have to pay for anything. All you do is show up, fill out your card, fill out the form, and they get you in, set up your appointment for 3 weeks from now, give you your shot. You sit for 15 minutes, see if you have any side effects, and then they send you on your way. So I'm pretty excited. I got my first vaccination shot, and my people can get more protection. And that we get the actual Emerald Cup samples today will be exciting to say the least. I'm not excited about Super Bowl Sunday, but I am about judging my cannabis Sunday. So that's more exciting for me, needless to say. So how about you, Wade? What do you
Super Bowl?
Say again, Marcus.
I was just wondering, today is the Super Bowl?
Rumor control that today is, or as I call it, Good Commercial Day. So there's apparently a game in between all the commercials.
Why don't we all pack Super Bowls?
Well, there you go.
I like that.
It's a great idea, Marcus.
I'm not sure why the new chat is not working. I haven't seen a single. Oh, apparently I have to comment first. Comment first. There we go. Isn't that funny? If I don't comment first, the chat doesn't open up for the rest of the people.
Really?
That's so funny. Well, it's working now.
I have
Everyone's
a question
in there.
for you. Is that a statewide mandate for cannabis workers, or is that something that's happening just in the county?
Yes. One of my Veterans Action Council, Brian Buckley with the Hellman Valley Growers Association, he told me last week that he showed up to do that and to get his shot. And when he did, they were like, "You're too young." And he said, "Well, I'm an essential worker in the cannabis industry." And they checked with their supervisor and they said yes. And so they actually put out a breakdown. So I then got that breakdown, sent it to my government affairs person, Sabrina Fendrick, who is on the board of the UCBA, the United Cannabis Business Association. They then contacted the state, and then the state gave authorization as of Friday morning. So there's an actual full-on mandate. I actually published it on my Facebook. I published it in the California City and County Watch as well, and the East Bay. So there's a full breakdown. We're considered 1A, 1B. And all you have to do is make your phone call. And they ask if you're emergency, you say yes, and then they make your appointment, and you can go down and get your first of your 2 shots.
Thank you. Excellent news.
Well, I'm glad you're all shot up and you look healthy. You don't look sick, so no adverse reactions for you.
No extra arms, no extra appendages, no weird feelings, nothing. The shot was, she did the old 1, 2, 3, right into the arm. It was quick and painless. It was just a little sore, like usually right around, where you usually get a shot. But I sat down for the 15 minutes, had no adverse reactions, and I was allowed to go home. And I came home and ate because I was so nervous. I didn't eat much beforehand. And then when I got home, I was just ravenous. So, it was, just a good feeling. And then the night's sleep was fine. Woke up yesterday, no soreness in the arm. And as stated, I'm just excited to get my people protected and that we're deemed essential. And if we're deemed essential this high up in the state, we need to definitely capitalize this on the national and the state level for sure, because that we've never been this high or considered in society before. So this gives us a platform to stand upon, and kind of a unique position we've never had before. So we have to figure out how to properly capitalize on that. We had, of course, Schumer come out this week and say here in the United States they want to pass some sort of cannabis decriminalization reform this year, which is rather surprising because a lot of the brain think we're thinking closer to 2 years from now. And to think that they actually want to get something through is one, concerning because they rushed through the MORE Act and then they added all kinds of things, including removing of social equity, which is a huge problem because, felons, veterans, and those, and, people of color across the board that have been hurt by this drug war, especially those that have been arrested, should have access to this industry because they're also some of the most experienced, people in this industry. If they know the risks, took the risks, and, everybody who takes the risks, it's possible to thread it 100% of the time. There's going to be things that happen. So, they shouldn't be penalized or hurt from that. In Canada, do you have any such disbarment for felons into the industry? Johnny, Marcus?
Sorry, I'm like super stoned right now. I was like,
does your country bar people who have previous felonies in cannabis from being in the industry?
That's why I'm not in the industry.
Oh, really? Because I am in the industry and I have previous felonies. So I have a very different answer from John. People with felonies can get into the industry if you try.
So, well, depending on
being honest,
charges and your felony charges. So if you really want to get into it, depending on where you lie and where you are in an industry and what you've done. So if you have
exactly, if you have felony cannabis charges, you're okay. If you've robbed a bank, you are not so okay.
Oh,
Johnny's got the bank charges. I don't.
Thank you for the clarification.
Clarification. I have a charge of a stupid little thing that is now dealt with. Actually, it was. I'm not going to get into it here on House Church. So, bong rip.
It's funny. It's definitely not what you think. It's totally Johnny Burfello, and it's totally innocent. But yes, he did end up seemingly with a fairly serious thing on his jacket.
Don't do that in the future. Just all I'm saying.
Yeah.
Johnny's packing up a Super Bowl. I think the rest of us should probably also. It's Super Bowl Sunday with Johnny B.
I am definitely loading up. It's
one of those days where actually I was just talking with some other people this morning, and they actually have it all set up like it is like a Super Bowl Sunday. They're partying, doing the same thing. They're treating it like a Super Bowl Sunday. But it's just the family, and it's everybody in the living room, and everybody's setting up all their treats and stuff like that. So, a lot of people are just having a great day today and just living it up. And, Etchen, everybody's got, I'm doing the first bounce, the goodness.
Yep, got to show off what you got. I'm doing some Oakland extracts, Garlato, some mango tangy.
And how about Clubhouse? Wow, that place is so addicting. It's ridiculous.
It's fun. I enjoy it. I've been listening and learning more than anything. It's fun to get pulled up to speak on things. But yeah, I've been listening to all of us all week on Clubhouse. Colin dropping knowledge, Marcus, definitely Doctor over here, Dr. Mark dropping all kinds of fucking knowledge, telling people, "Shut up! I'm not done talking yet."
You're
all over it.
And Colin, dude,
What's up?
Mad respect. You're just like so dropping the knowledge and everything that you've done and what you're doing and everything. It's
Thank you. It's funny. I take Marcus as a friend very seriously, and I love you, Marcus, very much. And I think there's a lot of things that are being said on that platform that we shouldn't regulate, but there needs to be truth to a lot of this stuff. And I think it's important that we share the truth that we've been taught and just continue to be truthful to the individuals and the other people that are interested in this plant, and also learn from the other individuals that are on the platform that we've never interacted with before. There's a lot of people that I probably would never speak to in any other instance, and it brings us all together. So it's really special in that respect. And Johnny, thanks for saying those kind words. That I'm just trying to do my part. Teach what I was taught.
I've really enjoyed it. I found that it wasn't until a particular person ended up on there, and I suddenly started looking at Clubhouse like, oh, I want to go in that room, but that person's in there right now. And I would be in the room, and that person would come in, and I'd be like, oh, I gotta. Just like the absolute bullshit that was coming out of this guy's mouth, and the slander, just the full-blown slander. I personally chose to avoid it. Colin chose to take it on head on and literally, go to war with this guy and crushed him. Really, I wasn't in the room at the time because I didn't want to be, and I won't even mention his name because he doesn't even deserve the exposure here on Hash Church. But what I would express to people that are using Clubhouse and enjoying it, as far as I know, I don't think there's a block feature. So when you go into a room, there is
a block feature. Yeah, I have blocked.
And if you go into a room with a blocked person, does that mean you can't hear them?
I have not gone into a blocked room to listen to that person. So I have yet to actually do that, but I get pinged all the time for this person who I consider one of the most unethical people in our industry. And for some reason, people ping me, and I had to write them on the side and say, look, don't call me into a room with this person because here's why, because I will not be kind. And we have to be in there. We have to be talking to people because these people are dropping all kinds of misinformation, lies, half-truths. And, they're trying to name dropping so bad that it's just absolutely obnoxious to the point where, sure, the novice definitely gets intrigued by it, but it's really fucking annoying to us that have been in the movement and watched these people use and manipulate people and now, try to win them over. You can't go out and, make yourself look bad by saying these, negative things, but it's definitely something that we have to watch for. Especially those that overtake a room and won't let anyone else talk. Those are obnoxious as hell. Oh, and let our Discord people know, if you have access to Discord, Hash Church people, if you have extra invites for your Clubhouse, there's people in that Discord looking for invites so that they can come and listen to you all during the week. So people are looking for invites still to access Clubhouse because it's still.
I've got 5 or 6, and I've offered for anyone to send me an email, bcbubbleman@icloud. If you give me your full name and your phone number, I'll add you to my contacts, which is how you send an invite out for Clubhouse. And yeah, the only thing I would ask is that the 2 invites that you get, that you use for other people from the Hash Church group. So I'll forward you a couple of people's numbers. If people aren't comfortable with sharing their names and numbers, that's fine too. Dirty thinks it's what's his name, 42.star North thinks that it's all the CIA, but I mean, at that point, isn't YouTube all the CIA? Isn't Samsung your smartphone? Isn't everyone the CIA? Like, aren't you just completely being listened to at all times through your plants, and birds aren't real, and the earth is flat, and COVID-19 is fake, and whew, I can't even keep up with all of it, really. But just
your phone tracks you absolutely everywhere and anywhere you go, and what you know. So yeah, for me, it's a great tool. It's just like anything else. It can be abused, but it can be used. And if anything, what has it done? Oh, we've all been together multiple times this week on a social media platform, talking and discussing and, you know, listening and learning. Oh, that's so terrible. How cruel and evil. You information sharers, you, how dare you, doctors?
And Dr. Mark, man, dropping the knowledge on the chemistry side, just so awesome. I really appreciate every time.
I mean, from zero to absolute confused in just a snap of a finger.
I love it. It's good. It's just such a good, I don't know. I like the conversation, Mark. Appreciate
Dude,
it.
we've done like 15 hours this week on Clubhouse. We were doing like 4-hour after work. I would start it at 3 and end it around 7 or 8 o'clock. And we did that at least 3 times last week.
I did 15 hours a day, I think, for a few days in a row. I was from one room to another, jumping on people who were just talking about the randomest things in the world. Not even some of them are cannabis related. I'm just like, hey, let's check out this room. It's pretty cool. It really is. If you just want to soak in some knowledge, it's awesome.
Yeah, I've been in like 6 or 7 rooms with you alone, Johnny B.
Oh yeah, I'm Colin and Mark. I see all of you guys in all these rooms, and I'm like, oh, okay. It's like going to a trade show right now, and it's like going to, like, I used to go to all these shows, and they have all these different rooms, and you just walk by, hey, dude, you go to the next, you want to hear that next person talk. I wish on Clubhouse they had a scheduled speakers at certain times, like we do have certain meetings, and I know it goes all over the place. That's the whole thing. It's like you go into one topic, it's not even on that topic. You just got to click on to see what the hell they're talking about, because you have no idea what they're really talking about. The headline might say something, but believe me, it's completely different 15 minutes after that headline is being, it's awesome that way. So
I had a great conversation with some Jamaicans the other day on Bob Marley's Earth Strong, February 6th. That was yesterday. I invited Wade in. I thought it was a trip. These guys were getting into it like Clubhouse style. Instead of blowing smoke up the Marley Foundation's butt, they were celebrating Bob, but at the same time, they were like, you know, Bob did this and Bob did that, and he didn't do this, and he kind of fucked this guy over. And, you know, the Marley Foundation wanted to create this image of a god like Bob Marley, but in truth, he was really quite a real person who had, you know, his own disagreements and his own arguments. And prior to becoming Rastafarian, was for sure, you know, a gunman, like a pretty serious guy in Jamaica. And it was just neat to hear these guys talking about everything in the realest of ways, and talking about the guys, you know, who brought Bob Marley and Peter Tosh and Bunny Wailer to see Joe Higgs, and how they kind of screwed Joe over and ended up going over to Coxton. Coxton was this full-blown, like, control mafia, the radio, any singer in Jamaica. It was neat conversation. It was not soft. It had a sharp edge to it, as Jamaican conversation often does. And I just really enjoyed it. They were also this guy by the name of, it was Johnny Pepperseed. And he was a white guy, but he definitely had the voice of living in the Caribbean. I believe he's like, you know, a well-known kind of radio DJ guy. And he was playing all original songs from the Wailers from way back in the day. And I just thought, you know, if you want to go on Clubhouse and stick with cannabis conversations, you certainly can. But if you want to break out of that, there's literally conversations about everything you can possibly imagine. I ended up meeting, I got to look up his name real quick, because I caught this cat in there, I guess 3 days ago. Corvain was his name. He just got out. He just got released from Trump. Like, he was serving a life sentence for cannabis. and he just got released. His name's Corvain Cooper. And I invited him onto Hash Church. I sent a link out. Well, I didn't send a link out. I sent an email out to his guy. I thought it would be a good idea to offer Corvain Cooper, especially if he had a GoFundMe, to promote him through Hash Church, to raise some money for him, to create a little nest egg for him for re-entry, because I'm not exactly sure of the entire story, and I don't want to share it here anyway. I want him to share it when he finally comes on. But that was one of the things that Clubhouse sort of exposed me to. I also met a woman by the name of Carrie, who has a really powerful story about, birthing a child while using cannabis as a medicine. And I think we're going to end up seeing, probably in the next 2 to 3 weeks, some fairly cool folks that are going to kind of come over from Clubhouse. So I'm really hoping for, more diversity in just getting some more females up here, getting some more Black and brown people up here, getting some more Latinos up here, just getting some more diversity, which I have to admit, there's a ton of it on Clubhouse. Hey, welcome, Ames Institute.
Good morning.
Dr. Allison in the house.
Talk about somebody we've seen on Clubhouse all week.
Oh,
Hey.
Allison.
Hey, I've seen all of your faces on Clubhouse too. I'm in good company.
I know, but your face is moving now.
Well, so is yours.
I know, but we don't get that on Clubhouse. We just get this.
Yes.
It's the psychedelics. Blame the psychedelics.
Hey, I want to let you guys know that I got Dr. Staggerwall to do a room on Monday morning, Monday at 2 Pacific Standard, to discuss cannabis and psychedelic medicine. Etienne, that would be a great time for you to ask about your hypermesis.
That would be, because that's something for, people have been contacting me about just out of curiosity because of my friend's daughter who has been dealing with it. It's still fascinating, and there needs to be definitely more science and understanding for sure.
Yeah. So if you're around at 2 on Monday, come check it out. We're doing it under the Cannabis and Science group, just because I wanted to be able to make sure that I got a wide audience. We're hoping at some point to have our own Ames Institute club, where all of the different clinicians at the office have a chance to do a room once a week.
I won't be able to make it, doctor, because I have my Veterans Action Council. We have our working group is on Mondays at 2. So I'm sorry.
We will miss you.
And
I will definitely be there.
Our plan is to do it for an hour, but if it goes longer, then it goes longer.
Hey, Allison, do you know if you can invite people on iPads with an email to Clubhouse?
You can. I haven't figured out how to do it, but
I did. I just uploaded it onto, when you download it on your iPhone or whatever, it automatically downloads it onto your iPad. Then all you have to do is go put in your phone number and it pops up. And I actually did it on my iPad. So if you don't have an iPhone, you can do it on iPad.
Even if you don't have an iPhone number, an iOS number, you can use a Samsung number?
Unsure. It just asks for your phone number that you registered with on the Clubhouse. So
it makes me nervous because invites are so rare. I don't get enough of them. It's and I think I pooched the first 3 invites I got by I somehow sent Matt Stang one. I just opened it up and Matt's name was there and I clicked it accidentally. I was like, fuck. Oh my God. Okay.
I did the same thing.
We all did the same thing.
Yeah, I've got 11 that haven't been able to be open because people either don't have access or they don't have an iPhone. So if you have an iPad, you can do it that way.
Yeah.
Dude, I make sure I ask each person.
I do too. I ask each person. I have 8 or 10. So if you need a couple of them for people who have iPhones or iPads, Marcus, I'm happy to. I gave one to
hit you up for sure.
Gavin, one of our listeners here on Hash Church, hit me up, and I hooked him up with an invite.
Well, I'm going to give all my invites out to Hash Church people, and then I'm also asking that they give their invites out to Hash Church people. So that should make it a solid 20 plus people. And it is a bit of a trust. You got to give your number and your name. And I have to add the person to my contacts. I haven't been able to figure out how to add someone to Clubhouse without having their phone number and their name in my phone.
There is no other way. You have to send them a text.
Exactly. So for those of you that trust me, no problem. If you don't trust having your number and name given to someone who's a part of Hash Church and you don't want that, no problem. We can, wait until I get more invites. And if you trust me, I'll give you some. And if you trust the people on the panel, I'm sure they'll link you up as well.
Believe me, I'm not crank calling anyone. So I
think nowadays you can just block people even on your phone. So it doesn't even matter if someone got your phone number.
I just deleted it after I finished it because there's just I love you, Gavin, if you're out there, but I don't really need your phone number. Someone, if people want to connect back again, they can always DM on Instagram. I kind of like that's how Clubhouse is.
Yeah, it ties directly in your Clubhouse, in your bio. It links your Twitter and your Instagram. So if people are interested, then they can go in and directly follow you on social media and ping you that way, as opposed to doesn't seem to be an instant messenger on Clubhouse, which is kind of cool because we can't always go behind the scenes and see. It's completely rando and live. So, that's kind of the fun of it too. And the pain in the ass sometimes when you're dealing with people who aren't very good at communicating their thoughts in a very professional manner. How's that for nice?
No, that was really good, Tian. I agree with you. I do sometimes find that certain people in a room will back message me, especially if some shit's going down. There was some shit going down in a room this week with Brett Bogue. Do you guys know Brett Bogue? You were there, Marcus.
I leave quickly once Brett Bogue enters the picture. I've known him for so long, and he's just and listen, I have a full appreciation for off the wall crazy, but when it goes beyond the wall, I just remove myself rather than, I don't want to ruin anyone's good time on Clubhouse. And I can get into it. I could easily get into it with Brett Bogue, and that it could be the whole conversation that's focused. And I don't want to turn my Clubhouse experience into that. So, I just leave.
I actually have blocked certain people that create a negative experience for me, so that I can see them when I scroll down if they're in a room, and I can choose not to go in that room.
Yeah. That's exactly kind of the way I've been playing it. And I really only have the one person who I feel that way. Otherwise, Clubhouse has been amazing. I also find I should thank him in a sense, because he's literally in every cannabis room every minute of every day. He's not doing anything else. I'm not sure where he's raising these hundreds of millions of dollars that he's talking about, but he's definitely sitting on his ass on Clubhouse a lot. And so when I see him in the room, I choose to go somewhere else. And often he's in the main cannabis room. So I end up finding these really random small rooms with magical people. And in that sense, I should probably thank him for that.
Some people are just positive examples of how you shouldn't be.
Yeah, it was on when I woke up this morning at 6 a.m. I couldn't believe it. I looked at my phone. I was like, really?
Where not to go, right? It's almost important where to go. I have to bring this up, Marcus, because this was your room and you had left the room at this time, right? So it was me and Colin, and I don't know if Johnny B was still in the room at that point.
It was.
I don't know if you were in there either, Allison, but boy, that woman got really nasty with Colin for really no reason at all. And was saying negative things that, I think from what I understand from follow-up with Colin, we're just completely off base. And so
did you move her back down to the audience?
So I tried to give her a chance to I'm trying to give everybody a voice, and I knew what she was saying was she was thinking I was someone else, and she just didn't, her context was so off, right? And I just had to let her finish, and then I had to be like, hey, so just want to let you know I'm not this person, that you think. And you know, and then like she ended up getting my number from a grower friend of ours that used to work for me, and she was like, I'm so sorry, I can't believe I did that. And look, it's okay, you know what I mean? That's just human nature. You're gonna get information and wires get crossed, and you know, we live in a world of that right now, of wires crossing. So I try to be accepting of that and know that I'm not going to go below that because it's just not necessary. And I think to Mark's point, it was really out of hand, and I think someone did ended up removing the woman from the room. That was yes.
Wow.
But anyway, that's the kind of stuff I think.
I mean, it was unproductive conversation, and she was yelling and talking just to hear herself talk, and everything was about negativity, about tearing Colin down. And it's like, this isn't what this is about. I mean, I'm new to this whole thing. Maybe I shouldn't do this, but Marcus bestowed a moderator on me, and I just click on it and is like, you know, remove her from room. Yes. This is unproductive. This isn't what this is supposed to do.
Usually what I do
wrong. So
what I've done is you can put them.
Then I don't know if you recall the conversation leading up to that, Colin. She was like, oh, why do I need an HPLC? It's like, what? Right. Why do I need an HPLC? Are you kidding me? You know what's really funny, Colin? The next night, she came into our room and I was talking about what? HPLC, right? And I was talking, right, about my little extraction method to try to break the emulsion. And you're like, hey, Mark, what'd you do today at the lab? Oh, okay, there's what I did at the lab today. And she was in there listening. Yeah. But yeah, that's just completely uncalled for. I mean, so she thought you were somebody else, but even if you were that individual, this isn't the venue to tear somebody down. You don't do that.
And she apologized. She wrote me messages, and she even went into another room and apologized in front of Swerve and everyone. But again, I think you're right, and it was an honest mistake. And if it was really true, then fine, but it wasn't, and we move on, and you know, we're just gonna move on. And she's not a bad woman. That's the thing. I think she's very passionate, and I could feel that. And misinformation along with passion turns into confrontation, right? I mean, it just
can. I like that she came back around to you, Colin, and apologized. That means volumes.
And she's nice about it, and you know, look, she's actually a nice woman. So I will say that out loud to everyone. She's really nice. Jenny, if you're listening, big love. Don't worry about it. It's all good. You did the right thing, and I appreciate you and what you do for the community around you. So thank you. And, you know, she brought up some great questions about HPLC, I think what we were trying to get after, Mark, in the conversation was, I want to turn this into a positive here, is when's the right application for HPLC, right? And can you get the same service fast enough from another lab? And how does that move forward in terms of product development and the products that you're making or growing, you know? And I thought you had a really good explanation for that. You know, Dr. Mark, you really, you know, broke it down. So
can I ask a question here? I've always been, whenever I tested edibles or flour or concentrates, I always turned to an HPLC over gas chromatography. Is there ever a time when like you feel that you can get a high standard of measurement from gas chromatography?
Yeah, you can get gas chromatography for the cannabinoids is actually more sensitive with a mass spec detector than HPLC can even dream to come. So, I mean, the sensitivity of the detector has a lot to do with how well the method works. But I think the question it was more around, do I need internal testing when I'm spending all of this money at the third-party lab, and third-party lab is giving me a really good rate and they're giving me a really good turnaround time. So do I need to have that capability in-house? And I guess the question or the discussion that we had with Colin was, well, if time is money, and I can basically run like a distillation and make a distillate or make a product, and then an hour later have the information that would take a 48 turnaround time a 48-hour turnaround time at another lab, well, then I'm going to get product out the door quicker because I'm not waiting that 48 hours. And the other thing is that, like, when you test stuff at third-party labs, you have to use third-party lab testing. That's just kind of like the validation that your stuff is okay and safe. And you're doing testing at a lab that hopefully your results agree with, right? And if your results agree with that, then you're really confident when you send those products out for your third-party testing that you're going to hit exactly where you think it's going to be. If you don't have that internal testing, it's like flying a plane with no instruments. The runway is there. Maybe you're going to hit it. Maybe you're not. You know, I don't know. And to me, time is money. If we think that there's 62 milligrams per gram of total cannabinoids in that product, thinking is not good enough. We need to actually measure it and show that it's good enough. And then I don't mind spending that money at the third-party lab because I've already tested it internally. So that was the nature of the discussion. And I think she said that she came from UCAN because she talked about working with Tony at UCAN. And I'm not sure exactly what facility she's at, but I think that, again, a lot of facilities debate this issue. Do I need internal analytics or don't I? And she was just in the camp where I don't, because I have a really good relationship with my third-party lab. And that's totally, I guess, you know, a valid thing to be. I was in the other camp. But that's just for the
you were in the other camp, the non-bankrupt camp. Is that the camp you were in, Mark?
No,
but you can bankrupt.
I just want to make a point that that's not what got her booted from the room. Which the discussion back and forth with the HPLC. That's where it started. What got her booted from the room was the fact that she was really nasty to our friend and the expert Colin, and that's just not going to be. You know, I think that's part of the Hash Church brotherhood. We sort of have to look out for each other, Marcus. You know, I could even tell you that I've had people say negative things about you to me, and I'm like, no, sorry, that doesn't compute with me. Marcus, I know even though we've never met, you know, because we've been connected on Hash Church all this time, I feel like I know you. I feel like I know ATN. ATN and I have actually met. We've had the luxury of actually being at a cannabis cup together. But, you know, I think that we have to kind of look out for each other. And so I think that a transition over to Clubhouse, I think there has to be some kind of rules where, again, there's a lot of negativity and a lot of nastiness for no reason whatsoever, other than people have to feel like they have to take somebody down. And to me, I'm just not going to tolerate that. And thank you for making me a moderator there, that I could do something about it, because our friend was unfairly attacked in an unfair way for no reason whatsoever. And that just goes to show that, you know, the kind of people that we are, we look out for each other.
I think we should have a bell on Clubhouse where we ding a bell when someone's going off, and then it's just like bong hit time. You know, just a little readjust. Just a little readjust, that's all. We might be able to come at this from another angle.
Yeah,
it could even be a D420K bell. It could be like his voice going,
bong rips,
mother lovers.
So, I mean, and Colin, you're the nicest guy in the world. Who can get mad at you? I mean, they have to have a really bad day to get mad at you, Colin.
Dude, it was false. And I don't want to get into it anymore, but I will say I did the same thing for Marcus. You know, Allison, you brought up Brett, and I just couldn't take it. And he was talking about Sam and Robert and all these people that I feel just, you gotta respect the history and respect the groundwork. And it just didn't make any sense. And I just stuck to very simple things like, hey man, if you have proof of this, I'd love to see it. But you know, I just want to keep this neutral. These guys are mentors and friends and people I look up to, and I want to make sure that what you're saying, because there's a lot of people that don't know the history of this in this room, that, you know, I just said it. There's two sides to every story, my man. And please make sure that what you're saying is number one, not coming from a negative place, and number two, has truth to it.
Yeah, there was one guy who popped in just because he saw the word hash. He had no concept that what we've done here on Hash Church, like he all he knows is like, hey man, there's a room talking about hash. I'm gonna get myself in that room. And he got in the room and he talked, and he was just so funny because, again, he had no concept of who Marcus was, no concept of bubble bags. All he knew is that he loves hash. And it brought him in the room, you know.
And that's cool, you know. That's what we want to talk to people who just love hash. And then that's how you educate them about all the other things that like we have experienced in our time within the cannabis community. So it's totally cool. But you know, I have not run it. There's been very like I can't even count like even on one hand how many people that have gone awry in a room. I find that most of the moderators seem to handle it really well. And, you know, you can always put someone back down in the audience and then kind of like address the situation in vivo and really kind of like smooth it out without having to engage in like a negative back and forth interaction. So it's
totally.
Speaking of that, why don't we ask everybody what they're smoking? I'd love to have a little
Yeah, you said bong rip mother lovers, so let's get a bong hit going, everybody.
Get me all enticed here.
What is everybody smoking on? I'm doing some Garlotto from Oakland Extracts right now.
I have some Strom Nana here that I cold cured that I'm dying to try.
Got some really good Subsidium extracts here from Ontario, some cookie dough and some cannabinerd. We got some bubble gum. I'm really enjoying this Sunny Dough Light, which is a do-si dough by Sour Tangy. And I have to say the Sour Tangy is one of the sweetest clones out there.
Love Sour Tangy. My favorite.
Tangy reminds me of Calio a lot with like a little bit extra gas and a little bit stronger of a cannabinoid profile. But
Tom Shirley he's smoking nothing right now. So why don't we pour a little out for Tom right now? We're sorry, Tom. That sucks. I wish that you had something, and let's hope that you have something for next Hash Church, because my goodness, everyone needs something.
I'm gonna hit on some of this lemon peel dog walker 90U from Archive.
The dog walker, so Marcus, the last time I had dog walker was the Bubble Man brand terp sauce that was made, and that dog walker has always left a lasting impression on me from that batch that was done.
Dog walker
Such a unique variety. Does anyone know the lineage behind dog walker? I know it's like Walker from Oregon.
It's Albert Walker. It's Albert. I think
Walker by Chem 91.
Okay.
Oh, I thought it was Albert Walker crossed with dog shit.
Probably not dog shit.
I thought it was Chem 91. Here.
That could explain why it hits all my notes, you know.
I know it's Albert Walker. Well, let's figure out whether it's dog shit or Chem 91.
That was another one Jeff always had access to.
Yeah,
he was always rocking the Walker. He was always rocking the hamster. He was always rocking these like unique things from back in the day. That cat piss. We had that up here too.
The Walker reminds me of Sour Diesel a lot, actually.
And then, you know, if Jeff gets it, then you know that Fletch is going to get it. It's kind of how that works. Or back and forth.
Dog Walker by Chem 91.
Yeah.
There you go. There you go.
Shout out to my bro in Portland, Oregon. I know the guy who made that.
So do we. We've been smoking the Chem Dog since day one. I mean the dog shit.
Dog shit or Dog Walker?
Well, not Dog Walker, the dog shit. I mean, does anyone smoke the dog shit? I mean, it's a classic Oregon strain for sure.
Depends on what kind of dog you have, really.
Definitely. What about the Trinity strain? Or does anyone remember the Trinity strain from the 90s?
Yeah.
I remember it. I have a daughter named Trinity, so obviously I remember it.
I mean, it was what we used to get in Eugene was like a big crystal leaf wrapped bud. It wasn't like the traditional bud that you'd see before. It was like the leaves were left and there was so much crystal on it. And then there was a variety called the White Witch, which came into Eugene for a long time. And that was hands down, everyone's like, when the White Witch came to town, everyone was just like, oh shit, you know, we got to get some of that.
Yeah, Richard, in the chat, you are correct. That's Rich Crommelin who bred Dog Walker. which is, yes, the Albert Walker cross with Chem 91. So yes,
Even
wanna
the
throw a
Chem
topic
Dog
out.
origins are in Oregon too, as well, with the Oregon, the dragon, or the what is it, the dog bud, which came, that they were saying was crossed in to create the Chem Dog to begin with.
Dog Bud, was that out of Oregon? I mean, those cats were from Crested Butte, Colorado, but I thought that they had said that that lineage actually came from NorCal. But that, P Bud, well, Dog Bud, which I guess again was the precursor in that lineage, I think was out of Crested Butte, I believe.
I think that's accurate from my knowledge, Dr. Mark, and it's fun. A lot of those lot seeds, I certainly have a jar that's halfway full of lot seeds that I'm going to start going through this year. So I'm excited to see what that looks like. But there's so much amazing stuff. I mean, Mark, you lived it, so that just I'm excited to see what, if anything, comes of it. But all that stuff is so memorable, from all the chems, and then of course the sour, and it's just a big part of me as a younger self.
Yeah, when we were talking in the clubhouse the other day to Rachel, who's from University of Amherst, I don't know if you remember that, Marcus and Colin, remember that woman Rachel who was in the room?
Yeah.
I was almost going to mention to her that, so Chem is now working with Canna Provisions. So Canna Provisions is Meg Sanders's business. Meg used to be the owner of Mindful in Denver. We were talking with Mohegan Richmond. We were talking about walking out of that weed grow, and the Denver police station is right there. That's Mindful, right? And so Meg Sanders, she was on 60 Minutes. I mean, she was definitely one of the women CEOs early on recognized in the Denver cannabis industry. Anyway, she's out in Massachusetts now, working in a place called Canna Provisions, along with her significant other, Eric, and they have hired Chem, Greg.
Greg, yeah.
Yeah. So Greg is working with those guys now. I think it's just as a grow consultant. So that's a shout out to Chem, man.
Yeah, I've wholesaled to those guys a bunch. They're a good outfit. I think they're doing a lot of good things in the state, and I can't wait to see what they kind of, working with Greg. I can't wait to see what they do, because I know that Greg.
Meg's awesome. Meg has just always been a leader in the industry, and she's no nonsense, and everything she's done has been really, really great. I mean, I was so happy to see, Greg land there, because he definitely deserves a role in the industry. So P-Bud, I think, is down in Florida now, but we were talking about P-Bud because I guess
one plant, right?
He's with One Plant. So, well, that guy that was in the room was talking about Mike the other day.
Right, yeah, he was actually a processor for One Plant. He was talking about how they were switching from, because I've been watching their evolution. I mean, they were first doing greenhouse, now they're back indoor. I mean, I can see why they're doing it from a commercial setting point of view. It's just, there's a lot more security in your environment down in that particular part of the world for green, versus greenhouse. But I'm sure VPD must have been crazy to deal with down there. Like walking one day, you're like, oh my God, it's like, 90% humidity or whatever. But yeah, they're doing a fantastic job. I think he's expanded a lot with them. And I actually thought Greg was working with One Plant as well. I wasn't sure.
Yeah, I don't know. Skunk Man, your name comes up all the time. I mean, it's so funny, right, Marcus? We were talking about, I
want to send him an iPhone just so we can get on Clubhouse.
So we can get on Clubhouse. Yeah, I mean, Clubhouse is waiting for you, Sam. I mean, you come up in conversation on a regular basis, almost like every other hour.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, but he can,
we can barely hear you.
Barely hear you there, Sam. You need to get closer to your mic.
I love that I know this guy so well that I can actually picture. No, we still can't hear you. I can actually picture exactly what he's doing in his house, going from his chair over to where he keeps his computer like 12 to 15 feet away. Fix it. We need to hear you, Sam. And Clubhouse also would like to hear you. Like Dr. Mark says, your name definitely comes up a schwack. And I think you'd probably spend, maybe the first 100 hours just sort of correcting what people are talking about in regards to breeding and what is a land race and what is a hybrid and sort of all that stuff. I don't pretend to know that information well enough, so I just listen and cringe. But I think, man, I gotta
to the strands.
Oh man, that one was like prevalent. That one I can swallow, you know, it's just like, okay, it's just a funny lingo or whatever, but it does seem to connect with the not knowing. And the not knowing is the very thing that you're kind of trying to get out of when you're trying to learn, right?
But the CBDs, people, and the THCs.
Stop!
I like that guy.
CBDs.
I like that guy, Big Grease.
The strands.
Big Grease, and we were talking about the joint. You know, we were talking about ash, you know, and everything like that. And he was talking about the ring of oil in the joint, and he called it the ring of oil. I'm like, nice.
That was awesome. Shout out to Big Grease for sure, because I like that dude. We got to get him on Hash.
Dude, I was about to say, he needs to be
cool,
in here.
right, Marcus? He seems cool. He seems like he's dialed in, that guy.
He speaks my language 100%. Let's
just say he has a level of awareness that we're looking for.
Exactly.
Yes.
For sure.
Yeah, he says a seat at this table for sure, just from the knowledge he's dropping, and he's correcting people properly, and you know, it's good to hear.
I was having a conversation about Wade the other day, and maybe you could make sure that I was saying the right thing. And it was about, maybe it wasn't, I don't forget, maybe it was on Tarly Live, but it was about when you discovered the Harlequin. And were you, I guess I'll just ask the question just in case anyone hasn't heard it. Were you grounding pots when you found the Harlequin or the high CBD? Were they THC varieties? And what lab were you using at the time?
Yeah, you didn't have that quite right. Yes, I was grounding pots at that point. It was an experiment that I was trying because I was doing everything indoors in those days. And yeah, I had just sprouted the seeds that came from Switzerland. But I was sitting in the flowering room and I meditating about what was going on, why I could feel that the plants were not all the way there to happy. And so I just said, you know, I ran down the list of all the things I was doing to make sure everything was perfect for the plants that I was growing at that point. And what I heard was that they were lonely. And I couldn't quite grok what that was about until I realized that plants evolved in the earth. And the earth has a natural frequency of its own. I think it's 6 or 7 hertz. And so I figured out a way by putting a grounding bar on a copper pipe in the grow room and ran some, I think it was 10-3 Romex. So I had 4 fat number 10 wires. I hooked one end of each of those wires up to the copper water pipe that went to ground because I had put it in myself. And then the other end of it, I stuck into 4 plants. And those 4 plants, at that point, what ended up being named Harlequin was those 4 plants. And I had 7 total that I'd grown out. It was the second batch of cuts I'd taken from the original seedling that I was so interested in. And the grounded plants grew so dramatically quicker. I mean, one of the first things I noticed, in addition to how much taller they were than their 3 sisters, was when they started setting flowers. I was used to seeing flowers about 2 weeks into their flowering cycle that were about the size of a pencil eraser. And this is on things like Bubba Kush or Grape Ape that I was growing in those days. And the ones that were hooked, the 3 plants that weren't hooked to ground, the flowers at 2 weeks were more about the size of my little fingernail as versus a pencil eraser. And the ones that were on ground, that were hooked up to ground, were already starting to be changing colors. They weren't just green all of a sudden, like everything else in the room that was green. They were starting to show other colors, and the flowers at 2 weeks were as big as my index fingernail. So it kind of blew my mind what was happening with that, and part of why it was so memorable is at this time, Nico Escondido was in San Francisco at a trade show, and one of the people I did business with had asked me for some flowers to give out at the show for folks who were coming in from out of town. And Nico ended up with a handful of those flowers. And we had a label in those days and a nice little package. And so he was interested and wanted to see what was going on. When he came over to the shop, one of the first questions he asked me once we were in the flowering room was, what the hell is up with these wires going over here to the plants? And so I explained to him what was going on. And yeah, by the time those 4 plants finished flowering, they were, the colas on them were as big as my calf. I mean, they were just huge. And the 3.
Wade, you just got muted on accident.
Oh, sorry. And sorry for the long story, fellas. But
no, take your time.
This may be the most important story on Hash Church.
I doubt that, but it's a fascinating story, and part of why I love this story is it's how I learn. It's, you know, you think of things that might be going on with your plants or your growing situation or your extraction process, whatever, and then you set up a little experiment to try and verify what's going on, or if this idea is real. And yeah, the grounding thing was impressive enough to Nico that about 6 months after he was in my flowering room, there was a company selling a product in High Times. It was one of their products, hot new products thing, that was a little white box you could plug into the wall in your house. And it had 4 little wires you plugged into the white box and a little red light that came on that said you had ground. And yeah, then you had some wires that you could plug into your plants. But what's true is, yeah, I'm utterly convinced that if you have all of the things in your room dialed in terms of environment, temperature, the quality of your water, the diversity in your soil, all of those things are sorted out. You've got the right lighting, everything else. If you then provide ground to just a few of those plants, I think you'll be astounded at the difference, because plants evolved in the earth. And this is, you know, Sam has talked about how important genetics are in how well plants do in the environment that they are growing in. And if you're working indoors, you can shape that environment. If you're in a greenhouse, you can shape it to some extent. But if you're outdoors in the sun and in the earth, you really need to look for and find the genetics that work in the spot you're in if you're going to see the best results of what the cannabis genetics can provide for you in terms of cannabis chemistry.
Thank you so much for that.
Thank
Wade.
you.
That is so beautiful. Also, what about the testing component? I may have had that part wrong, so please. And I was saying, I think I was saying as I was saying it that I may not have it right, so I really wanted to clarify. So thank you.
Well, in that batch of seeds that we got from Switzerland, there were at least 2 different phenotypes in the things we sprouted. And again, Harlequin really stood out. It was one of the phenotypes, and it was one of the just one seed. But it was so different than the other phenotypes that I was looking at that I kind of went crazy. Follow your passion is the message there. But the other phenotype that we tested, the one that was worthy of growing out, because in an indoor environment, we had fairly limited space and had to be fairly selective about eliminating things that we weren't that interested in. The other phenotype that we tested was a high THC variety. And the testing that we were doing at that point, Harborside was one of the vendors that that our product was going to. And they had just opened up Steep Hill Labs. And so, yeah, I went in and talked to them about it. And because I was a vendor, they were willing to do it. They hadn't started testing all their flowers at this point. And yeah, I think it was $100 a pop for cannabinoids. And that's how I knew the one was high THC. And then the other one, like I said, it came back, it was, I think it was 8.5% CBD and 5.5% THC at 8 weeks of flower. And yeah, they were pretty excited. They pointed me towards Fred Gardner, the publisher of O'Shaughnessy's, and I spent some time learning a little bit more about him before I gave him a call. And out of meeting him and a couple of other people who had found some CBD cultivars, we started what's now known as Project CBD. And it was quite a project sorting out what were we going to do with these plants, because one of the folks that had this high CBD thing going on was me, and I was already giving it away fast and furious because I was learning more and more about what CBD could do for folks. One of the other people was kind of, I don't know, maybe we should hold on to this. This might be worth money. And the third fellow was like, dude, this is a fucking gold mine. What are you doing giving it away? And I'm still good friends with both of those fellows. And there were other folks involved in the conversation, including Fred and Martin Lee. But I really, and I still feel like, you know, when you find something that's unique and special and offers benefit to folks.
How was Ringo Lawrence involved in that time period? Was Ringo Lawrence using pure
Lawrence, yeah, Lawrence Ringo. Ringo
sorry.
was the name he went by.
Lawrence
was his first name.
Right.
And no, he was not involved at the beginning with Project CBD. I met him through Fred and Samantha Miller of Pure Analytics. And Samantha was working with Lawrence at that point quite a bit. Yeah. Samantha's a brilliant chemist and analytical chemist, and doing really good work in the compassion realm for years. And yeah, Lawrence, one of the first conversations we had, he said he had gotten some Harlequin cuttings and was going to cross it with his sour tsunami. And how did I feel about that? And I just thought that was a great thing. So yeah, we became good friends, and I've done quite a bit of work with Harley Sue, the cross that he made there, Sour Tsunami, Canasu, all of the cultivars that have CBD in them that end in TSU are from Lawrence Ringo's work. Ringo's Gift is another beautiful cultivar that does quite well in Northern California. And Lawrence died suddenly a few years ago. It was kind of a heartbreaking thing because he was such a beautiful guy, and he did a lot of great work in the compassion realm. I just got to say, much love out there, Ringo. I hear you and feel you in the room with us. Yeah.
Thanks for sharing, Wade. That's awesome. And yeah, huge shout out to Ringo, well-known cannabis warrior doing the good work. And man, if anyone else has Ringo stories, let's keep his vibes alive.
A lot of the DEM pure farmers in Northern California have been growing out a lot of the Ringo's Gifts, a lot of the Harlesus, a lot of those, you know, CBD varieties over the years. So, you know, big up to the DEM pure family and keeping that alive. Also, we grew the Harlesus that we grew this year were just twice the size of everything else in the greenhouse, and really large style buds. I just want to point out, I think it's really phenomenal that you were on your second cloning grow when you then grounded it and it really changed the plant. I think that's just a really important teaching and a really beautiful teaching on how you can affect your plant with such a simple, you know, action. And anyone could plug a wire into a ground and make that happen. And I think that's really great. But yeah, the CBD, also with the CBD, we were in Colorado. Welcome, Cal.
Hi, everybody. I was doing some things this morning. It's so lovely to see you. And I've been listening in the background. I had some work to do. Good morning. Happy Sunday. It's so lovely to be here.
Good morning.
Good morning, lovely dear.
super quick story again about CBD. We could move on whenever, but we were in Colorado, you know, I don't know, 5 or 6 years ago, and visiting Centennial Seeds, and the CBD seed company out in Denver. And is it Ben?
Ben.
Yeah, and he had a GL gas chromatography machine like in his warehouse and in his grow, along with record players, which I like the record players. So I think the vinyl's an important component, and that's probably the synthesizers too, Colin, if we're real. But anyway,
like 8 years ago, but
it was a long time ago. It was in the beginning of the whole entire, you know, movement in Colorado with CBD, and it was really cool to go through his. And it was just what you were talking about. You know, he was able to look at all of his plants through his own home gas chromatography cannabinoid machine, and he was keeping all of his own notes. And he was really progressing at the time, and it was really cool to see, you know, to see it go from sort of what Wade and Ringo and the families out in California were doing to then like to a more commercial scale out in Colorado, and then come back now to Oregon and see what Oregon's done with it is just pretty amazing.
And Ben is sort of like one of the unsung heroes, just like Bodie out there in Colorado as well. You know, those guys were searching for CBD and hemp well long before it was even sort of the in thing to talk about. And to go into Ben's laboratory is like hilarious. He's got like his gas chromatography in the corner, and then stacks of records, like more records than you've ever seen in your entire life. And he just sits in there and just runs sample after sample after sample, you know,
with the storefront in front of it, you
yeah,
know, where he can sell his seeds. It's sweet. It
and
was,
the
I don't know where he's at.
dedication.
I don't know what's happening at the moment because we haven't been there, but
yeah, the dedication.
I have a question in this story, and I've been asked this question before. And Wade, maybe you could give me some color, or, you know, certainly anybody on the panel that knows. How exactly does the Stanley Brothers Charlotte's Web fit into that lineage, or does it not fit into the lineage, or was that something completely different, or?
Completely different.
Yeah.
If I remember
I think
correctly,
it's
wasn't it the R4 cut, guys?
It's all around the same time. That's when even up here in VC, when we tested a sample that was named Haley's Comet that came from Franklin from Nanaimo, it was like 13% CBD, 5% THC. It was that 2-to-1. Same kind of like, it was all around that same time as the Harlequin, as the Stanley Brothers came out with Charlotte's Web, and there's that big craze. I think Haley's Comet was around 2008, though. When was Harlequin, Quaid? What year was that?
About 2008 as well.
Yeah, but remember that it's around the same time because
Yeah, right.
I mean, and same with Charlotte's Web. Wasn't it around that same time too?
and the ABC, and also the Canatonics and Spain. It's important to note that Spain was doing a lot of work as well at the time and still does. So big shout out. We've met a lot of those breeders at Emerald Cup over the years, and if they're listening, we appreciate you.
Or how about a shout out to Skunkman Sam, who might have been doing his work 20 years prior to anyone we just mentioned.
Yeah,
True that.
And also Shanti with the CBD crew. What's the? I don't know much about when they started. Does anyone know what the story with that is?
Back in 2013, I think it was, in the spring, I got a handful of seeds, about 7 different packets that ended up coming from Jamie at Rosin Seeds, which is the Spanish. I'm not sure about the corporate structure there, but it's my understanding. Jaime, sorry. I've never met the man nor spoken to him in person, but
you'd like
yeah,
him.
I got it. Yeah, I've been told that. But meantime, yeah, I was asked to beta test a bunch of seeds, and there were 7 different things there. And one of those today I learned was named Haze. And there was a cut, a specific version of one of those Haze seeds that caught my eye, just like Harlequin. We made cuts of that and got it out here in Northern California. And I always point to CBD Crew as the source of those seeds. But part of why I wanted to mention Haze specifically is Forrest and his son Silas, who was on Hash Church with us at one point. They're still struggling with epilepsy, and Forrest has really had to withdraw from his cannabis advocacy, trying to keep Silas alive. is really what it boils down to. But Haze was the cultivar, the specific cultivar from Jaime and the folks in Spain that Silas went from having 100 seizures a day over a period of months, and they were going back and forth on trying to keep him alive, basically. And he got some Haze oil on a Friday night, didn't have any seizures Friday night. And then as they kept giving him this oil, he went 4 months before he had another seizure. It was insane. The change.
What's the ratio of cannabinoids in that?
Again, similar to Harlequin, different terpenes and probably different cannabinoids, but it's a 2-to-1 as well.
So another 2-to-1.
Yeah. Now the
Haze
the
2-to-1. I mean, Wade, do you think that there's something to that? I mean,
I'm utterly convinced. Yes.
Right.
It's why hemp is not the answer. I'm sorry. I love hemp. It's the cannabis plant. It's the same thing. But I think the real magic, at least in my experience working with the people I've worked with over the years, the real magic happens when you've got CBD and THC and a bunch of the other cannabinoids all together. There's that ensemble thing.
Absolutely.
It's a real phenomenon in patient experience. That's what I've seen again and again.
Just to be clear, it's 2 CBD for every 1 THC, right?
Well, Harlequin and Haze were both that, what you just said. Like some people say Harlequin can be a 3-to-1. And I think that depends on when it's harvested.
Yeah.
I think there's a change that happens in ratio depending on harvest date with these cultivars. But I'm pretty convinced that more important than the ratio in terms of what benefit is happening for a person is it really has to do with how much THC can a person tolerate in terms of using a cannabis product over a period of time. If they enjoy THC, then they might want something that has more THC than CBD. But I'm pretty convinced that the best benefit in terms of your health and your well-being and your feeling good is going to have some CBD mixed into the THC. Sorry, Sam, but
no, I
feel that strong.
That's one thing I recommend to a lot of my cancer patients, and my business partner, he actually had cancer and I put him on that regimen, and it got rid of his cancer along with conventional treatments. So, and I just want to also clarify is you're going to be hard felt to find any CBD prior to 2008 in the United States domestically, because it wasn't until we started testing then in 2007 and 2008 for THC that we found that secondary spike that we were like, what the fuck is this? And we were able to find that in Meshulam's. Now, I know, of course, Sam has been doing this for a long time, but I was part of that team here in America that were actually trying to test that. So that's when those secondary spikes were mostly found. So most of your CBD is from 2008 forward domestically that I'm aware of.
Yeah,
I'm gonna add something. I want to add something really quick. So this is what we see in our office. We work with a lot of oncology patients, and the ones who are using CBD with THC tend to have better results than those who are just using like something from Rite Aid that's a hemp-derived CBD. I would love to hear more of what Sam has to say about that, but that's just what we see.
Well,
yeah, Sam,
can you hear me now?
Yes,
absolutely.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Live it, Charlie.
Okay. Well, I just wanted to say that we started our CBD work in the mid and late 80s. That's when we started. And we had a CBD plant by 1990 that was about 10% CBD with less than 0.3% THC. So we were focused on a CBD only plant, and that's what we came up with. It's hard to get a high CBD only plant because the CBD synthase itself produces THC, even if you have no THC synthase in your plant. So it's extremely difficult. And the bottom line is we started in the late 80s, And we told Fred Gardner about our work, and that helped kick off the whole CBD quest, because they heard it existed. We told them we had it, but we licensed it to a pharmaceutical company to pay for our research and development. And yeah, I think CBD is amazing. And all the time people are making fun of me because I say I don't like it. You know, because I don't need it for medical benefit. If I needed it for medical benefit, I would like it. And we did stick our necks out on a limb, you know, in the late 80s and developed a CBD only variety. And we were able to do that with gas chromatography and high pressure liquid chromatography. And I want to say something else too. Dr. Allison asked, what is the GC useful for? Well, another thing.
No, the CBD, no, I meant like hemp derived CBD versus cannabis derived CBD.
No, I was talking, you asked about a GC chromatography. What was it useful for?
Oh, yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay. And they're very useful for determining terpenes. We always use GCFID for the last 30 years. And that was the state of the art. Maybe there's some more sophisticated ones that I'm not as aware of today, but GCFID for terpenes is the answer.
Quick question, Sam, from Hermatia Elusens. You had HPLC and analytical standards for THC and CBD by 1990?
Oh, earlier, yes.
And how did you do that?
Well, first of all, the only cannabinoid that's controlled in the Netherlands, which we didn't possess until the very early 90s when we were licensed, but the only cannabinoids that are controlled is Delta 9 and Delta 8. All the other cannabinoids are not controlled in the Netherlands if you can find them or isolate them yourself or whatever.
Did you get testing standards like from Segra and stuff like that?
Absolutely, but we made ones ourselves that were actually purer and better than Segra.
Or yeah, that's what we did. We had to bring in, you know, Dr. Hoskamp to actually make the solutions, since he was making the solutions for the Dutch. It was easy for him to, once we had him in a lab here domestically, then he was actually able to do gas chromatograph and UV HPLC, so that we had both online to actually quantify just THC.
Yeah, well, our problem was when we got Segra standards, one of the first sources we got, they said they were 98% pure. When we tested them, they were 86% pure THC. So, you know, if you have numbers that screwed up from the beginning, all of your work will be screwed up because it's built on that foundation.
Right, that screws your ring testing in every way, shape, or form.
Yes, except for I was doing ring testing with Dr. El Sole and Brenneisen in Switzerland, and the three of us were getting identical results. I knew we were doing something right.
That's how we do it, ladies and gentlemen.
Wade, I wanted to just back up really quick and just talk about how you're really finding, you know, those one-to-ones, or, you know, where THC is heavily present as well. I feel like, you know, we've been treating patients for 25 years, and as the information, you know, comes to light, there was a lot more THC. We didn't have testing back at that time, but we were using a lot of old varietals. So my guess is that there was a lot of CBD in those sort of land-race-ish varietals that we had at those times. And I noticed that when we were making medicine, say like in the early 90s, the late 80s, it seemed like it was helping people more quickly. And then as the varietals started to change, they were becoming more hybridized, more higher THC, the same medicine that we were making, I was finding that we were needing more like heroic doses of it, to where people were really sort of like, you know, out. They were only waking up to go to shower, to eat, to go to the bathroom. It was healing them, but they weren't having, you know, they were just having to take more. And as we started to then get in more of the varietals of the 1-to-1, I was seeing that healing again with the same medicine that we were making, except even more exorbitant. And the patients were having to use even less. And now the next step to that is, and I just wanted to introduce here, is utilizing hemp, but at super high concentrations as a whole plant medicine, so that you're getting much higher THC levels along with much higher CBD levels. We're really noticing that that also seems to be a real magic key. And when I'm saying like whole plant extraction, you know, we're using maybe like, you know, hemp that's, you know, 23% to maybe a 0.6 or something like that, is about the numbers and average of what we're getting. We're adding about 2 pounds of really intense flour into an oil. So it's a super concentrate. So the THC levels are much higher. And I feel like even with that progression, we're noticing that you're having to take maybe even less of that medicine to get to the same results. This is totally ongoing observation. It's a lifelong experiment of medicine, but also as much as we're talking about compounding cannabinoids, also compounding plant medicine with cannabis, I feel like is equally as important as compounding all of the cannabinoids for the medicine. So sorry, I went off on a rant on that, but like mushrooms and like kava, and I could go on, and different types of Chinese herbs and roots. And Josh said astragalus, you know, I could go on with important compounding and looking at different symptoms. Like CBD and THC are wonderful symptomatic healers, and they can be total curatives. But when we add different compounds of other types of medicines and we bring in other plant intelligence into it, then we're compounding the cannabinoids, the terpenes, and all of the other alkaloids and other plant compounds that, you know, can go hand in hand. Sorry for the long wind there.
Well, I would say Sam would probably have a better opinion on what sort of cannabinoids were in the early land races that came to North America. But I remember reading at one point some information from the Drug Enforcement Administration where they were running analytical testing for cannabinoids on cannabis that had been seized coming into the United States as part of law enforcement action. And yeah, a lot of the cannabis that was coming in from Mexico and from Jamaica are two places that I remember that had CBD and THC together. And so I'm not surprised that your observation is that 20 some years ago, you felt like people were seeing benefit at lower doses, because in the 50 years that we've had cannabis on any scale in North America, most of us were breeding for psychoactivity. So we were breeding out CBD without really understanding that that's what was going on. We were just trying to optimize the get high experience. And,
well, and flavor
a wonderful
too,
job
right?
of that. What's
flavor
that?
Too. And
yes.
flavor.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
So
no,
flavor and get high. So terpenes and
all of that. And yeah, I love the diversity of the cannabis plant, because all of these different experiences that we are mostly talking about on Hash Church associated with cannabinoids, we're primarily talking about THC. And THC is a wonderful cannabinoid, but there's all of the other things that are going on in the plant are part of what makes the difference between something like Headband and Northern Lights. You know, they're just there's so much variety, and yet most of the chemistry is similar when you're talking about just THC or CBD. But when you start talking about minor cannabinoids and other terpenes, and it's just, it's astounding and beautiful, the majesty of this plant and what she can create for us. And yeah, to circle back to ratios and CBD and THC, I'm pretty sure that if you took pure THC and pure CBD and put them into a product at whatever ratio you wanted, you wouldn't see the benefit that you would see if you made an oil from something like Haze, where you did the best you could to preserve the original chemistry of that specific plant, because there's minor cannabinoids that have effects. And we're learning more and more about how those minor cannabinoids not only affect our bodies by themselves, but how they affect our bodies in concert with other cannabinoids. And again, I'm not really the expert on this. Mark, you could speak more about it, or Sam could speak more about it. But my experience has been that much what you were saying, Kelly, at lower doses, we see much better benefit when there's whole plant versions of CBD, THC, minor cannabinoids, flavonoids. And I, for one, am utterly convinced that other herbal and fungal allies will be of benefit to us in conjunction with cannabis, particularly the psychedelic realm. But because I don't have much experience or practice with it myself, I don't speak much about it here, but I do use all kinds of herbs in my own care. For working with other people, I just offer cannabis. And that's kind of where I'm at with that. Yeah, I'm utterly convinced whole plant, CBD and THC in whatever ratio works for the end user, you'll see much better results at much lower doses. That's
I'm trying to like turn my microphone in Clubhouse, and I realized
cutting out.
Cutting out. You're in a car. You're on mute now. You're on mute, Doc.
I'm on mute now. Explain that time, Marcus, where you had to cut me off because I was getting on a conference call. I didn't remember that.
Yeah, you were starting a Zoom call. It was good.
Yeah.
I think there was another one that happened like that the other day that we were, oh, it was the Pot Brothers at Law. They came into a room, and those guys are already kind of like, you know, they're these kind of loud lawyer-like guys that are like, hey, you know, keep your fucking mouth shut. They're hilarious. I like them, but he was on like a call in his office. Like, I'll mute you. Nice to be able to mute people when they forget to be muted. Johnny B's trained me like I have a black belt in muting people at this point in time. Over 5 years of Hash Church. Where are you, Johnny B? Come on, unmute your mic for me and crinkle some parchment. And shout out to Brian from Best Friend Farms, dude. How the hell are you doing? You're laughing over there.
Oh, I'm doing well. Nice to see you guys. Just having a good old time.
Dude, a lot of people ask me if the picture of rosin on the front page of this Hash Church was yours. So many people ask me that. And I have to shout out whose it was, because that rosin belonged to Good Buds. I believe it was Snow God, but it might have been Time Warp. And it was this young kid. I think he's like 19 years old. He works over at Good Buds on Salt Spring Island. His name is Tristan Colombin, Collombin. Nice. Tristan with an A, Tristan. I wanted to shout him out because he made that bubble. He made that rosin. He took that picture. And although I knew he would be stoked when I used it on the front of Hash Church, I couldn't figure out a way to shout him out. So I'll put a little shout out for him in the comment section once the YouTube video is actually up. And I have also just shouted him out now. And man, it's a lot of people know your resin. When resin looks like your resin, they think it's your resin.
Well, nice work to homie there. Definitely shout him out. We've been getting some good results though lately.
You guys get great results, man. I'm always blown away at what you guys are pulling off over there. It's like East Coast Cali over there.
Well, man, brought a little bit of that back actually, and yeah, but definitely started with the whole bubble hash thing. Ooh, geez, almost 20 years ago on the East Coast, you know. So nice to be back here doing it. We've been getting a lot of good results with the cured resin dry flower whole plant bubble runs, and showing some of that work lately. But yeah, loving the conversation about the CBD medicine and full spectrum medicine with other plants, definitely with the THC. Done some breeding of my own with some, trying to go terp forward, put some terps on that CBD THC stuff. I introduced a little bit of pineapple fields, actually, and a few other different, hoping for terpy types. We work with one actually out here called Purple Orange, which is a Calio back cross. Calio diesel back cross that I think came from Dynafem overseas in Europe, and that one's really loud, terp forward, super bright. So I just want to throw that out there. Definitely use a lot of CBD medicine and recommend it, especially for us, you know, heavy THC consumers. Seems to kind of flatten out the roller coaster with that. So yeah, hey everyone.
What are you with the whole plant dried resin runs? What bags are you using to catch the whole plant? Is it down to 45?
Oh, that's funny. So we're actually, well, we're using the full bag set. So we do 6 bag, and then we do a 3 wash series on the full bag. We do what I've been calling kind of a micro macro. So we're like small batch. We're kind of excited about it. We've been doing this for a couple of years just for our own rhythm, and it works really well. We've kind of dialed in for our, I think, a primary 5, 10, 15-minute wash consecutively with the clean out between, and, you know, fresh water, ice input up to the last run, then kind of a clean out dump. And we've been focusing on definitely for the kind of broad spectrum 73 to 160. And that's been our best trap for the whole plant dried stuff. But I'm finding that for the rosin press, the 120 to 160 for the dry, you know, versus fresh frozens, always love the black bag. The 90 to 120 black bag is like, you know, the baby, but the gooey, terpy, and the resin both together. But I'm finding for like the pristine lighter nature that maybe the market demands a little bit in the new day, for like the lighter look rosin that you can still get from an air dry cured resin, comes from that 120 to 160 locked in for sure. So.
Big up. I love it. I love it. And yeah, I mean, and also have you pressed or made any hash from hemp or any kind of CBD stuff? I know Nicotine and Essential Extracts was doing some cool stuff a long time ago. And I remember when I first smoked my first hemp, like, hash, I was kind of like trippy, and it was weird when smokable hemp took off too. You were like, whoa, like smokable hemp is one of the #1 products for hemp farms, you know, originally, you know, not as maybe now, but you know, but still smokable hemp was big. But any experience with making hash out of hemp?
Yeah, making some bubble hash out of hemp. We made some full spectrum from dried flower like a couple years ago. Just found kind of on repeat. The yields were a little lower and such, but they did make a really goopy black tarry substance. I can't remember if it was at the bottom lower micron or higher set, but it was not your average you know, 73 to 160 even. It was almost on the other side of that. And with some, I think up to the 73 to 90 maybe, that was kind of, you know, it was very black tarry. It was tannin rich, but had a tacky glue quality that just dense, stuck together, very heavy, small, dense, you know, black, dark right away. And it had a bubble, it had a melt quality to it even, you know, with heat, but it was not full melt. It was perhaps not the best tasting, had a good heavy CBD effect. Yeah, but always on the search for new stuff. I talked to the Ancient Green friends last week that said they have something like a peach tree or some other work from, I think from a moon gazer or somebody. Anyway, it's a peach tree or something with some peach terps. And I'm always kind of looking for the, like I said, very terp forward kind of CBD work. We've been doing otherwise like a Suver Haze cut last year for the full, just went full plant like you guys are talking about into the extraction loop there for the FICO, for the, you know, for the Ancient Greens processing, and getting amazing healing results for a couple of years between elders in the community, solving their pain, to my younger dog has Lyme disease. And I don't know, I can't say that this is what helped or did it, but we put her on the antibiotic because her platelet count was so high at like a 171, where she originally showed a 29, which was flagging for the Lyme at a young age, 6 months. A year later, she was 171. We did the regimen, and I stuck her on the, some other medicine here and there too, a little bit, for about a month at the end before testing. And she showed at about, I think it was a 19 count, like not even on the chart after a year of regimen every single day with that CBD formula. Pretty heavy dosing, honestly, daily, didn't skip a day. My old dog with us lives by it too and has the most high quality of life with it. And anyway, I wanted to throw that in. The pets are absolute amazing. I saw Lyme disease, I believe, is what kind of kicked its butt,
What was the dose that you were giving it daily?
Well, I'd say about a dropper full. I don't know what that equivalates to. What is that, like a 2 mil dropper?
Is that neat oil, or is that oil that's been diluted?
So I went with a MCT oil with what I would say about a 2,500 mil is what I make at home for us. Honestly, 25 to 3,000 mil. We kind of go strong. It tastes, it's rough, but what I would do is, a full dropper full, 2 to 3 mil.
You mean milligram, not mil, right? Just so I know.
Milligram.
Okay.
Yeah, excuse me.
Okay.
Yeah. So like what, a 2,500 to 3,000 milligram type of bottle size.
Or 2 ounce bottle?
In a 1 ounce. Yeah, 1 ounce, I guess, suspension is that in MCT.
Yeah,
so,
in a 1 ounce bottle.
You're asking kind of the wrong person with a 31 ounce bottle.
I'm trying to get as much information on this because people ask me this all the time. I've never heard it for Lyme's disease. So like, I think that's, again, more things to look into. My gosh. So like, what do you notice?
So like 3 grams, like 3 grams of crude oil, carbon dioxide, crude FICO, into 1 ounce of MCT oil.
That gives you 100 milligrams per milliliter.
Okay.
That gives you 100 milligrams per milliliter.
That's pretty concentrated, right?
Yes.
That's like
we go pretty strong. I've went from about half of that up, and I definitely make it pretty strong. No question. It's very crude, even on the taste.
Are you mixing this in?
So what I do for my doggies, with my doggies at dinner time for them, I will mix it up on their food, and I give them a special gravy from our own chicken bone stock at home that we make, from the neighbor's chicken. So we do it pretty right, and a local protein source typically for them reduced. We refreeze it and break it out. They get gravy every night on their dinner, and I'm able to mix it in with the warm, a little warm water with the gravy, with the CBD, and I just swirl it right up, and they can't get enough. My older dog licks that medicine off the dropper. She likes it. She knows it heals her. And then I don't know this one either for sure, but it's so exciting that she has a skin cyst, like a fatty tumor, the older dog, that comes up on her back for about 3 years. And when I apply that pure MCT oil, even right by the dropper, a full dropper full on it, 2 to 3 days right into the tumor, and that thing reduces by like half to 3/4 size every time. It's wild.
Amazing, right? The shit is fucking amazing.
I love this conversation about
unreal,
because our dogs have been our patients. Like our dogs have been, and our cats and our animals, and then the neighbors' horses and the neighbors' goats. I've been using cannabis, for 30 years to see, how we can take them either out of a death situation or out of acute different types of symptoms. And that super high concentrated CBD, like you're talking about, like 100 milligrams per gram is what we're making here. So each capsule is worth about a gram, give or take just a little bit in the way that we make it. So it's about 90 to 100 milligrams per capsule. And our dogs will get a heaping tablespoon in their food per day. So they're eating about probably 2,000 milligrams of CBD per day. And I think it's amazing. The changes.
Have you guys ever found where it makes the dog restless at night, and like they sometimes will be panting at night? I mean, I think that, again, that's one of our things about giving super heroic doses. We don't know if we're just overstimulating their cannabinoid system. I'm always worried about giving the dog too much cannabinoids, so now they're just all
Well, I think it depends on the age of the dogs and what the dogs have as far as symptoms, because I could never give a young dog that amount. What I'm talking about is our older dog. I'm looking at him right here. He's got tumors. He's over 14. I think he's 15 now. Sweetest thing, but just, keeping his, zest for life is all that's important. And what I wanted to say in here was that you can use, and the THC needs to be incredibly low. So that's why those high concentrations of the hemp, because I noticed if it's a high THC, they're affected. Very quickly.
I know a veterinarian here in Northern California that's had a couple of dogs die from consuming edibles that were high THC. Dogs have an insane number of cannabinoid receptors in their cerebellum, and that will, so THC affects them very strongly. Really be careful giving your dog cannabis that has THC in it.
Hey, speaking of California, hold on for 1 second. There is an actual Assembly Bill 384, which would prohibit the Board of from disciplining veterinarians who recommend cannabis on an animal for medical purposes. So in California, AB 384 is the one you should be calling your representatives and your local people to make them aware, so that because we can't carry products currently for animals because of this. It is very much a challenge. So this will be a step toward normalization here in the state of California. So AB 384, call your people now. Thank you.
Thank you.
You can't carry pet products, ATN?
It is a gray area. I mean, people can choose to, but the SBOE, I mean, not SBO, BCC currently is, they're kind of, it's one of those areas where we need a bill like SB 384 for that type of protection. Again, remember, I can't carry CBD from hemp. I can carry CBD from THC plants. So I can carry it from indica, but not from sativa. So CBD is CBD is CBD, but the law here is ignorant and dumb, and we still have to educate the ignorant and dumb because we've got ignorant and dumb laws like this. So, I hear you.
What processors are doing, I think, is they can take metric tag material and somehow add it to that hemp-derived material and get it into the metric system somehow through the back door.
Not in California.
I mean, but that's just
not in California at this time.
So
it would be illegal.
Has a way to do it through the. I think there's an organization that was set up for Massachusetts, so you can get it in as an ingredient. There's like a weird gray area there. So that's the best that the state's really done. So it's kind of weird, but it's just, because it's a cannabinoid,
Yeah.
And I want to say, Josh Kelly, I've made some 3-to-1 here, rosin from fresh rosin hemp that, really a drug cultivar, but I've also been working with Lifter and Hawaiian Haze and a bunch of other varietals, and I'm trying to get some better understanding of like how it reacts to different processes. So I'll let you guys know how as I get deeper into it. I've got quite a bit to play with, so
that's awesome. And those are generally high terpene plants. I mean, when you grow those, I mean, they smell good.
Yeah, Lifter's super sour, really kind of like got that nice, like, I have some here, it's nice, and it's I'll let you guys know. I mean, it's really sappy, but this was really beautiful. I mean, the color is really nice on it. It's nice. It's a nice floral. That one's from Electra. So, but it's but each varietal is all over the place. I've had varieties that test really hot, but then other ones that don't. And when you do these big mixed batches, you just get a cannabinoid ratio that's varying in different either or direction. So it's pretty interesting.
I would love to dig into why this group thinks different cultivars work differently in the extraction process. And part of what's driving this in my mind is in making FECO, full extract oil of different cultivars, one of the things I've come to realize is things that are predominantly THC in FECO don't flow well at all at room temperature, whereas things that are more rich in CBD and low in THC do flow pretty readily at room temperature. And I know that terpenes probably play a part in that, but when I play with making hash, because I enjoy smoking hash, one of the things I found is, as a general thing, most THC cultivars don't work up into a nice little puck of hash as readily as things that are rich in CBD. So I think cannabinoids have something to do with it. But even if you're talking about, like, what's the difference between, I remember Bubba Kush was a cultivar that never worked into hash very well. Whereas sour diesel, for example, you could work a nice little puck of that in your hands. So what's the difference there? It can't be just cannabinoids. There's something else going on with the trichomes that gives us this different response, whether we're pressing or, you guys get the gist of my question. I'm wondering. I'd love to hear.
Well,
I would say it's a terpene.
THCA wants to be a solid, right? Are these in liquid? Are you talking about a liquid extract?
Sam, speak up. You were a little low there. I heard you.
I said, I presume it's mostly the terpenes.
Yeah, I concur with that. I've seen, and I'm sure maybe Marcus could share some of his experiences, but I think certain varietals, like a Jack Herrera, is just like historically a low yielding varietal because of the type of terpenes it actually produces. But also, I think we could even get more granular in terms of the type of trichome heads that it grows as well. But
that's what I'm leaning towards, Colin, is the trichome heads. Or whenever you touch most of the hemp flowers, they're really greasy. They're that same kind of Jack Herrera greasy thing. So there's something in the terpenes and the cannabinoid makeup, and maybe that's why it flows better. It makes sense, right? Like when you touch it, it just greases out in your hands. That would make the FECO that you make more viscous and flow a little bit better. And I think the THC varietal CBD has a larger head and a bit of a different shape. Now that can be proven wrong. That's just observational through growing and making hash out of, but that's my thing. What did you have a thought on?
Oh, I was just thinking, we're talking about, when we talk about terpenes, we're just talking about oils and then different viscosity levels for the oils with different temperatures and how different temperatures grease out at different, volatile oils. That would be the terpene.
Yeah, that's. Sorry,
I was just going to add that different cultivars all have different terpenes, and different terpenes have different saturation points for THCA, right? And THCA, which is the predominant cannabinoid that's in these kinds of varieties, is going to want to crystallize out above its saturation point, but just before its saturation point, if it's a super saturated solution, it's going to be viscous. Yeah, and the thing with it, I found interesting, Wade, with CBD. So, and again, we're talking about THCA, which wants to be a solid, right? THC is a liquid. It's just a very, very, very viscous liquid. It's not quite a solid. I mean, you can freeze THC into a hard puck at low temperatures, but when you warm it up, it becomes just an amorphous liquid, right? So it's just basically the difference in the viscosity might have to do with how much, if there is any adventitious decarboxylation in your extraction process. So that's what I was going to ask is, in your process itself, is this after you've decarboxylated it? Or are you
We try to do the extraction. We do the
Talking about the native
extractions
extract itself.
in cold ethanol, and we don't decarboxylate before we do it, because again, if you're looking for psychoactivity, you would decarboxylate. But if you're trying to make medicine, particularly for people who are sensitive to THC, you try and keep it decarboxylated or carboxylated. You still want
what we found is and I don't know if you see this too, Colin, in alcohol recovery from an alcohol extraction, that you get spontaneous decarboxylation of CBDA, and CBDA in solution, CBDA in solution is not stable and it readily decarboxylates. And so what we find is just that letting the crude sit, we'll measure it and we'll see no CBDA at all. However, all the CO2 that's been lost through adventitious decarboxylation is still dissolved in the crude itself, because if you try to dissolve that crude, good luck, because of that CO2 in there, you're going to be messing with your vacuum constantly. So you still have to somehow purge all of that CO2 out of your crude. But what I find is that after that, you have a very different viscosity for a high CBD crude than you do for a high THC crude. And I would just attribute that, again, I think Sam's right, absolutely, for the terpenes that's in there. But ultimately, I mean, those two compounds just have very different characteristics altogether. I mean, THC is just viscous, honey-like syrupy oil that, again, you can freeze into a solid below room temperature, but for the most part at room temperature, it's just a viscous oil. And the last other thing I was just going to mention is that sometimes with THCA, when you get a saturated THCA solution, it does get very, very, very viscous. So I've seen some saps that are almost solid, but they're just still a runny liquid. And it's because the terpenes are doing a good job at keeping all that THCA in solution. And it's not kind of gone above the THC saturation point. But the fact that each individual strain is going to have a different saturation point, like what we had found is like with Headband in particular, it makes a really good, diamonds, really good sauce. But for some reason, some of those hazes, and again, this has to do, I guess, with the fact that they're high in the sesquiterpenes. Sesquiterpenes don't necessarily volatilize away, but they're still liquids, and they solubilize all the cannabinoids. Those strains tend to be more sauce-like, tend to make a lot of sauces, and you could still get diamonds to partition out of those saturated solutions, but it might take a little bit longer on the shelf. And also what you might find is that if you're filling vape pen cartridges with those types of sauces early on, you might find after a few weeks, you got a little crystals in your vape pen tank because, yeah, the saturation has not fully, or the crystallization hasn't fully happened. But from my experimental results, I think we have measured this actually on 3 or 4 different ones. It appears as though the THCA saturation point in things like, I think we did for Headband, and I want to say we did for Lemon Diesel, was right around 86 or 87%. So if you exceed that in terms of the amount of cannabinoids in there and you have less terpenes in there, you're going to start crashing things out. But that's going to be very specific to the cultivar and probably very specific to the way that cultivar was grown, and probably more specific to how it was extracted and put into the jar.
Yeah, I agree with you, Mark. Everything you were saying there.
Hey, Colin.
Yeah, go ahead.
Have you been washing any haze? Have you been washing any hazes at all?
So yeah, so I've I've washed a lot of hazes in general, just because I like them. I mean, I really enjoy them, and commercially they just don't make sense. Like I've
yeah,
Palm Hill Haze, over 16 weeks. It's hard, but I think the closest thing commercially viable, just to that grows really well, is like some of the Jack's Cleaner lines. If you can find a good phenotype and chemotype there, it definitely dumps and it makes 6-star like a beauty. But I think I'm trying to think of the name of the variety that I ran this past year that was like super amazing, but it just yielded like 2%, and and it was just like it became head stash at that point. But we did like maybe like 100 pounds of it. We got like nothing. It was really good though. But yeah, I think for hazes, for me, I try to look towards things like that have been worked a lot, like that, like the Jack's Cleaner or any of those types of variety, or even the Jack Frost from Loompa. That was one that I've ran that had like a pretty good yield. If I don't have my notes around me, but I think that was another one that was good. But yeah, also Brothers Grimm, Rosetta Stone was actually one that I put out in Massachusetts, and people loved it because it just embodied the Jack Herrera, but had this like floral equatorial vibe to it that was very different for the Northeast here. Like people just weren't next to, they just weren't next to these varietals, so to speak. They really didn't get into this floral thing out here very much. They look at what California is going through in terms of what their kind of their favorite songs of the week, if you will, and it's like a lot of those gelatos and the sherbs and a lot of that stuff, and out here, as it's just traditionally been sours and chems, and and I really appreciate a lot of that. The Rosetta specifically from Rick was actually really great. Uptown Funk was really great on the plant, but didn't translate so well through the process. C99 was another one that I felt like had that grapefruit funk to it that kind of had equatorial, a little bit of that. Silver Haze. The Super Silver Haze is one that I used to grow a ton of, man. That was like my classic. That's another one historically. I don't know, Sam, maybe Sam has some more, maybe from the dry flip perspective.
The Super Silver Haze around here, finishes pretty early. Like people grow it outdoors here in British Columbia, so I'm imagining it's some hybrid version of it. I don't know if there's any thoughts on that, but I'll also say Arzelli's Gift was has the Jack Herrera mother clone from Eugene, which is the Jack Herrera's got haze in it, right? I mean,
that's this one right here.
The Jack Herrera's got haze and skunk in it, and
I wish I could share this with you guys. It's unbelievable.
And then the Zelly's Gift has super lemon haze that we got from Hawaii, from the North Shore of Kauai. So the Zelly's Gift has a nice batch of super lemon haze and original haze from Jack, and then also the lemons and the terpinolines and stuff. But it is a greasy plant still.
But a bunch of people are washing it down in San Francisco, and they're saying that it's their most favorite sort of creamy.
And also it's mixed with the AF goo. So now we've got the goo in there. I mean, not now, it's been for forever. It's our oldest one. But anyway, I just like how the goo mixed with the lemony hazes, and it makes really good hash. You got to get you some seeds.
We're seeing a popularity here in the Bay Area of the cake varieties and cereal milks. Apparently, those are apparently really popular between the wedding cake, birthday cake. We're still seeing the hazes, lemon jack, gelatos. Those are still, the prevalence, the Kush, the diesels. But the cereal, the cereal milk and the cake varietals seem to be the latest flavor du jour.
What about the orangeade and the those kind of, there's some pretty good still creamsicles and stuff going on still.
Oh yeah, they're coming through as well, but I'm just, again, the popularity with the consumers, they seem to be what they seem to be gravitating toward. It's always fascinating. As a cannabis sociologist, I've always been fascinated by the trends as they've come through, and as such as when we won the Cannabis Cup for Girl Scout cookies, then everything was cookies. So it's just always fascinating to watch the different flows of genetics as they come through, what stays and sticks in the in society's mind, and what goes the way of the dinosaur and we never see again. So those trends are just rather fascinating. Everywhere from looking back on the old THC MQ or whatever that we used to look for the actual prices in High Times, you know, and they'd be like, in your area, there's Kush available for this amount of money. You're like, nobody's got that fucking pot around here, especially at that kind of money. But, you know, so now we have actually dispensaries and, you know, varietals that are going out via metric. But, you know, metric's one thing. It's another thing to see what the trends people are going by, what's getting them high, what phenotypes are, you know, actually triggering people right now through the populace. It's, I don't know. Do y'all find it as fascinating as me? I just, you know, I've always found it kind of neat.
Yes, uniquely human, right?
Yeah,
Only
but
humans
half
can
of
do
it is
something like
genetics,
this.
and the other half is just names. In other words, if you don't have any Jack Herer because that's what you want, well, some unscrupulous dealers have been known to call whatever they got Jack Herer.
Oh, that's a thing. And that's also the very interesting thing about this year's Emerald Cup is that they're doing it by terpene profile, not by names. Because we've got terroir, you know, depending on the name of the genetic, et cetera, et cetera. So by actually going with these profiles, I think it's going to be a new dimension, a new dementia. But I think it's rather fascinating than just, you know, the standard names that are out there.
Yep. Now I guess we just have to worry about varieties from seed that have multiple phenotypes in them with different terpene profiles.
That's true, man. There's a lot of that going on.
It's really awesome that, you know, you have the knowing of the general public and those different flavors. I find it totally fascinating, ATN, and it's really different than the legacy market or the traditional market, you know, where you were just selling pounds and it was just decided upon, you know, the buyer, and the buyer maybe in his or her likes, and maybe that was it, or what they felt like if they could sell to their next big buyer. So it wasn't really at all about consumers. So I just am so fascinated with what consumers are interested in. And it's interesting too, if you study terpenes, which I do in Ayurvedic medicine and sort of ancient essences and flower essences, sort of the signs of the time and maybe what's going on in the world, or even seasonally, what people are more drawn to, you know, are they drawn to more brighter, you know, terpene notes in the wintertime and more earthy tones when it's super hot and sunny out? I just think that that's just like incredibly fascinating. And I think it would be really fun to track in a wider experiment at some time.
Hey, Josh, one thing I wanted to add on the Haze that you were mentioning Afgui is, Brian, I had really good luck with the Afgui times Old Mendo Haze. I got a bunch of stuff from Gui Breeders that he released, I guess, last year or something like that, or maybe a year before. And I had really good luck with that particular variety. I think it really leaned on both the mom and dad there, and gave, you know, a nice yield and really gave that you know, that Haze vibe. But I'm not really I don't really know where Old Mendo Haze comes from. I don't know if Josh, Kelly, or even Sam, if you know what that is. But it seemed to actually produce well. And then Blackjack has been historically one that, not the best yield, but it peters on, you know, it can be so great if you grow it really well, that I really think, you know, the Black Dominant in that one and the Jack Herer really kind of equally kind of throw out the parent stock. It's kind of cool.
Was the black part of that Blackberry Kush? Or
no, so I think Blackjack is the Black Domina.
Oh, the Black
from Sensi, I think, and then it's times to the Jack Herer. I don't know which way it was created. I'm not sure who was out there.
Our biggest excitement this year with Jack is the Rainbow Jack that we got from Heart Rock Mountain. So big up Daniel to Heart Rock Mountain and all the work that they're doing on breeding, as well as everyone else. But the Rainbow Jack was really beautiful. It was
incredible. You have a
purple
few varietals.
purple Urkel, I believe, and I could be corrected on this. Yeah. I think it's a granddaddy purple Urkel Jack. And it was just a vigorous plant. It had like the crazy thick leaves and the purple stalk, but with red stripes up it. So it's like purple with red. And then when the leaves came out, it was like, you know how the where the leaf hits the stem, there's like a hand, you know, where the veins pop out. All of those were bright red underneath with a totally green leaf. Really beautiful, really beautiful. We had a lot of we did a lot of crosses with that this year.
That's amazing. I'd say, talking about the blackberry, I do remember when blackberry came out, kind of like a pop culture phenomenon. It was just so unbelievable. I'd never seen that electric purple. I'd seen some purple, but that was a very special purple at the time.
So I'm pretty sure the pinkleberry from Green Source Gardens has some of the blackberry kush in there. And it's an early finisher, right? So a lot of people use the blackberry kush as their early part of their genetics. And we were just working with some here from Jordan of the Islands. They had the black do-si-do. So it was a blackberry kush do-si-do, black dolado. It was a black do-si-do gelato. That's what it was.
Yeah.
Anyway, it was really beautiful, and it kind of did have that bready sort of, not cake, because cake is its own thing, but it had that kind of sweet. I guess it's like a dessert ganja, you know, you'd almost say.
I can definitely say that back in the day, the blackberry kush was the most sought after varietal. So I'm going back to maybe 92, no, a little bit later than that, 95 maybe. And the blackberry kush, it was like the most sought after, the highest price per pound, the one that had like all of the different colors and all of the different smells. And it was really cool because oddly enough, we would get a whole crop of that from an all women collective out in Northern Cali. Just all women growing up in the hills. And they were the ones that were really holding on to that blackberry kush. And it was worth a lot out in the East Coast because nobody had seen those terps or, you know, smelled those terps or seen like those colors in a plant before. It's pretty exciting.
And I would also say that there's a lot of success out there with our lemon meringue homesteader, our lemon homesteader that we've been doing. Tara Lee, big up to you. She's been out there making some really beautiful hashes with our lemon meringue homesteader as well. And also this tire fire. So, I mean, the skunks are amazing. You know, Duke Diamond, incredible with the Dominion Seed Company and all of the fire. I don't think the tire fires from Duke, but we've just gotten so much. The CIS skunk and the SSC skunk, A lot of mass
skunk too. The
Are you
Dominion
still working with the mass? Do you have the mass super skunk going on out there at all, or?
Yeah, so I have what's known as the mass super skunk, and there's a lot of controversy behind where that came from, how that came about. You know, I've had that one for a while, and I know Bodie was working with it, and he's kind of feeling the same way, where it's a beautiful variety, but it feels like just a really great selection of super skunk to me, that maybe has just been passed around the region of New England, New York, and Pennsylvania and the DMV area as well. Because I know Duke Diamonds worked with it a bit. But it's that's what it feels like to me. It's very garlicky, but very skunky. Has a very skunky vibe to it. It's really great. I mean, I don't want to just take anything away from it, but there is a lot of, I'm sure there's people in the chat that are probably want to chime in on where it came from, but it's a really great variety, and it's the backbone of a lot of things that we know of. It's said to be, you know, one of the pieces of sour diesel. You know, it's definitely a unique one. You know, and it is a little unstable at times. You have to be very careful.
Hey, I just wanted to let everyone know I'm actually stepping away. Can you guys hear me?
We can.
Okay, great. Yeah, Colin said he was going to help run the show, so you guys can go for however long the flow takes you. But my son Tanner has been like anxiously awaiting me so patiently for the last what seems like about 2 or 3 hours now. So I got to go hang out. I can hear him at my door. He's coming. You ready to hang out, buddy? Yeah, buddy. That's
Go
it.
be dad.
That's
We
it.
love you. We appreciate you.
Awesome.
And thank you for
Big
giving
love,
us
Mark.
this platform.
That was a really
Awesome.
night show in Whistler, Marcus, that you showed us in the trees. So have fun with the
Have
kids.
fun.
Yeah,
Hell
that's the
yeah.
important
Thanks,
work.
everybody.
Yeah, thank you, Marcus. So we'll keep
Enjoy.
this rolling.
Just text me when you want to turn it off, Colin. Peace out.
All right, I will.
Thank you, Marcus.
Thank you. Yeah, thanks, brother. So yeah, I have a question for you guys. Maybe Josh and Kelly can answer it. What are you guys finding in your region that really is little effort with, pest management and, just, general environmental things? Are you guys finding some certain varieties or things that you're gravitating more towards over the years, or are you guys still fresh on like we're still trying stuff, or you guys have any kind of things that you guys look for?
So I wanted to invite Kaya on here maybe next time, from Pacific Northwest Roots. His Alien OG crosses that he made with the coffee's been really good to us. Green Source has done really good with it down in Southern Oregon. And it was one of the varieties that I can think of just right off the top of my head that did really unbelievable and just zero issues and incredible flavors, really bright alien flavors. Maybe it's an alien
I
thing.
wanted
Some
to,
of the other alien varieties
I think it might be an alien thing for sure. And I think what Josh is talking about too is what we notice is that it's our varietals that do like totally amazing, year after year. So we'll bring in a certain percentage of other varietals, and it really only maybe only 2 to 3% of those ones that we bring will be vigorous, that will carry on and maybe bring into our lineage and breed. And I think that those alien were definitely really good. But for us, I think what is the most vigorous is our mothership, AFGU, what Josh was saying before, is sort of that original, it's a real Afghan sort of father. It's super rich. It's incredibly vigorous. It has candy cane stripes of purple up it, and the leaf pattern is specific, to what we know and what we're and it seems to do well. Anything that we crawl into, it's more resistant things, and it has just a lot of coat count. So that's another thing.
Sorry, we're on a liquid lens, so we got to go to the bathroom. Add the glazed cherries that we've brought into our world has been really amazing.
So resistant.
Yeah,
totally amazing. And what I can say is that the terpene profiles that don't work with us are definitely any of the oranges or the tangy, or we've got a gorgeous African orange. Well, it's a gorgeous flower, but I'm working so hard at it for any type of pest management, because for some reason we're in a non-agricultural area. We only grow by seeds. There's nothing around us, but we have hemp aphids. We have bong aphids that continue to come back, and we're really watching closely and have been for many, many years on what terpene profiles that they're most interested in. And so we're really trying to stay away from those terpene profiles, even though they're really amazing and we grow them anyway. And, we just work at it. So that was long-winded.
No, that's awesome. That's super cool. So Skunk Man, you've grown more cannabis than anyone in this room combined. What over the years have you seen from your experience for dry sift that's like something that I know Skunk One's been the main squeeze as it's proven to be for a lot of the things that I've made. I've come to find out that there's a Skunk One in everything that I've done. Skunk One to me is really interesting because it embodies such a hybrid. What do you think attributes to that stuff?
Well, probably what I liked best about skunk number one for dry sifting is once you dried and aged and cured the buds for a couple of months, then and so that the resin is more like a raisin rather than a wet gooey grape. Skunk is very easy to work with because I mean what you need is, number one, a lot of dried plant material for dry sifting I'm talking about, and then number two, what you need is you have to have a lot of it uh, so that you can experiment and understand all the different techniques and what it means to do it. It's kind of like Johnny does. He sits up there and tries to find new cool things to do constantly. But if I don't have true favorites. I mean, probably Haze and Skunk is two that I love the best. But I mean, whatever appeals to any one individual is good for them. And any terpene profile can be appealing to different people. I've seen stuff that made me gag, but other people thought it had sort of an appealing smell. So what is reality?
Sam, you mentioned Skunk and Haze. Did you ever breed those together?
Oh yeah, all the time. And Skunk times Haze and Haze times Skunk, I made them both. They're both very similar and very wonderful. You can get ones that are almost hazy looking and smelling and tasting and effects, but with a lot more muscle to them, meaning a bigger plant with bigger buds, more skunky rather than hazy. But also too, I did varieties with like some Thais that I had brought back from Thailand, and they were times, it was called Funk. It was Thai Haze Skunk. And let me tell you, I've seen people who still have those mother plants and just swear by them. So, I mean, I've created hundreds of varieties, and I just hope that somebody enjoyed them, because my focus was primarily recreational. Even though we did a lot of medical work first, we were really trying to understand cannabis as deep as possible so that we could make better herb and resin for the folks, or allow them to make their own.
Yeah, and you definitely touched everyone with all your work. I mean, I love the contrast with with Josh and Kelly. You guys are selecting for your region for what works for you guys, and Sam, you've been in a lot of different regions and different scenarios as well. It's cool, I'm in a situation where I'm in all these different environments, and I'm trying to learn as much as I can, because it's like, we have the regulated side, then we have the personal side, and they're sometimes very separate spaces, when you want to breed towards selective things that aren't towards the end of like an 8-table room that's 2,500 square feet, or a field, that's going to end up in someone's bowl. So, it's cool to hear the contrast.
I remember growing imported seeds from Afghanistan. I did this many different times from many different imports of seeds from Afghanistan. Because after I went there when I was very young, it wasn't really possible to go to Afghanistan safely. Maybe a few people have done it recently, but yeah, I mean, if they want to kidnap a foreigner and hold them for ransom or something,
There's
to me, that's not a vacation.
There's some good traveling going on. Razing online on IG has been doing some incredible travels. You know, a good amount of people involved in their Himalayan connection online. Has been doing some really, you know, amazing travels and collecting a lot of strains. I forget Baba. There's a woman, Hemp Vati. She's been, been in
Josh,
Milan.
did you know that technically it's illegal to go to a third world country and collect their genetics and bring them back to America? You have to now do it. There's United Nations biodiversity laws against doing that now.
Hey, Sam, we have a question from the group. Do you have any information about the mid-late 70s Fallbrook red hair?
No, I mean, but I don't know who was growing in Fallbrook in the 70s. That was out near the avocado growers. I imagine a lot of different people, and I'm not sure what the red hair was. I wasn't down there in the 70s. I was up in Central California on the coast. But Fallbrook was one of the first places where they were able to successfully grow later season sativas outdoors.
The other question is, did you work with the SSSC seed bank?
I gave them most of my, they bought most of my varieties, you know, around the same time as Neville. So that must have been like 85, 86, 87. They got skunk, haze, and a dozen other varieties that I had. And
did Greg McAllister have strains in there too at the time?
Well, Greg had his strains being sold by Neville at the Cannabis Castle, but I'm not so sure about SSSC. I never saw his strains listed in there, but maybe he did, and I just wasn't paying attention.
Hey, Sam, I'm curious, who did the Northern Light #5 Skunk Haze 91?
Okay, but what about it?
I don't know where it came from. It's just a bag C that I had marked on a bag, and I actually got my mail from that 12 years ago. I played with, and I'm just curious. I'm just trying to find like where that seed bank came from, or who actually created that line.
Well, say it again.
Northern Light #5 Skunk Haze, I think.
Yeah, well, I was behind most of the skunk hazes.
Yeah.
But I didn't hardly work with Northern Lights at all.
Okay.
So, but somebody probably got a skunk haze, either me or via me, and then crossed it times Northern Lights himself. And what he got would have been something a bit like Silver Haze.
So Mr. Bob Hemphill in Northern California and Darcy there, that family, crickets and cicada seeds. Amazing family. They've got a lot of those original, probably one of the largest collections of original mother clones and mother plants and stuff. And one of the interesting varieties out from them on this thread of the 88 crazy red-haired interesting variety, and it made a flower that was probably unlike any other flower that we've had on our property before, which was super fat, airy, no like sun leaves to trim off or anything, weird orange long hairs, and really kind of airy, dense with crystals, but not solid. So it was hard to explain, but that
all crystal, no carbon.
Oh yeah, it was Kelly saying all crystal, no carbon. So anyway, the 88 G13 hash plant, super good. Crickets and cicada seeds, Mr. Bob Hemphill, check them out.
Did you have anything to do with the Friesland, Friesland, Sam?
Well, Friesland was one of the varieties, along with purple pars, which was popular here in the Netherlands when I first visited in 1984. And it's still grown a little bit, but it wasn't.
We have some.
It
Sorry,
wasn't.
we do still, actually, from Maine. We got it at the Regenerative Conference. It's a GG4 Friesland Cross. And we also have a Friesland Cross, and I forget the breeder's name.
But wait, you're saying it's GG4 times Friesland Cross. So that's Gorilla Glue, yes?
Definitely is. I'm saying we have more than one seed like packet of it. One of them is all Friesland. The other one is him trying to work it into the GG4 and make it finish early. So am I right to say the Friesland finishes early?
Yeah, Friesland finishes fairly early. It's just not really high in THC or crystals. But, it's what people were using here in Holland outdoors before the mid 80s.
Did you breed with it or modify it in any way?
No, I tried to grow it. I grew it at my greenhouse in California, and I didn't like it. So, I think I threw the seeds away, to be honest.
What did you not like about it? The high, the vigor, the size, the growth?
Yeah, to me, I really, really wanted plants that were, the elite version of whatever archetype they are. If it was Mexican or Colombian or Thai or whatever. And the Friesland, to me, it was what I used to call rope-a-dope. Yeah, it had THC, but it wasn't screaming high. Now, I'm not saying that all Frieslands are that way, but the vast majority of them, because I got them from many different Dutch sources, and I took samples from their plants, and none of them were screaming high in THC. I'm not sure if I ever saw one more than 10%, but whatever. And I didn't particularly like the taste or the smell or the aroma or the effects screaming high. So it just fell by the wayside for me.
So is Friesland part of Ukraine? Is that a Ukraine?
No, Friesland is in the Netherlands. It's up in the north.
Area in the Netherlands?
Yes.
You can still get some Friesland seeds from the Real Seed Co. They're still offering.
There you go. If it's anything like it was, I have no idea.
I have some of the seeds. I haven't had a chance to go through them.
They were also sold by Lowland Seed Company, one of the early Dutch ones, and Dr. Veed, a woman who sold seeds in the Netherlands in the mid 80s.
So I remember the name of the seed bank was the Clone Only Seed Bank, and that was his big, like, funny, name.
I don't get it. Will you explain it to me?
I'll let him explain it to you. But the Clone Only Seed Bank is in Maine, and he's a really awesome guy. So we got those Friesland. We really liked the cross with the GG for this time. So it was something that we were going to continue with, and we got seeds from it. And it did add a nice flavor to it. And maybe on its own, the Friesland, like F2 or whatever that we got, the double Friesland cross.
You're freezing up.
I think we lost him. Yeah, Friesland.
Hey, I have another question for Sam.
Now as flavorful. So, obviously we do it for the turf.
Hey, Sam, I have a question from the chat. I'm going to say this probably terribly wrong. Have you grown the Zihuatanejo purple while in California in the 70s? Zihuat.
Zihuatanejo.
There you go.
Yeah, I'm familiar with Zihuatanejo purple. Yes. It's a Mexican variety, which I think is gone now because all the Mexican land races got hybridized with Northern American varieties that smugglers and do-gooders took down there, to where there are no pure Mexican land races anymore, including Zihuatanejo purple, or Acapulco gold is probably got Thai blood in it, or Lao blood, who knows.
We really enjoyed our Acapulco gold that we grew out from Bodhi seeds. It was definitely, looked a lot like a wild, varietal. And I do understand totally what you're saying. It's hard to get that. We just recently got given seeds from Colombia in the 70s, or was it early 70s? Yeah, we got like super old seeds. So we're waiting on how to propagate those proper, and we might do that this spring. But yeah, every once in a while a person comes out of the woodworks with old seeds and stuff from Afghanistan and even out of Mexico, but it is extremely rare. But I do like the Acapulco gold flavor and that lemony flavor. And we just smoked some Congo. There's a lot of the interesting Congo strains that are going around, and that's also got a nice. So I felt like a similar flavor to the Acapulco gold, but I don't know if anyone has any thoughts on that. We have to duck out. Our internet's going out, and it's just a beautiful day. So thank you so much for your time, everyone. We love you.
See you guys. Keep growing.
Blessings.
Bye, Josh. Bye, Kelly.
Hash strains. Isn't that what we're all chasing? Those strains that make that epic hash?
So it's
well, what we have to do is we have to breed hashish varieties that have resin the size of grapes. So you can just freeze it so it's rock hard, shake it, and a single resin will fill many pipes.
I want it. I crave it. Come on, you botanists, you crazy botanists out there.
I'm going to jump too, folks. Have a great Super Bowl.
See you, Mike.
Keep smiling. We'll see you next week.
You mean the superb owl, right?
Join us on Clubhouse. Talk to you guys later. Bye-bye.
Take care. Yeah, I find, the varietals that work for me have obviously the largest heads, but it also depends on what you're trying to do with the material. If you're trying to get full melt heads, then, you're going to want to be really gentle and you need those larger heads. If you're going to try to make, an edible or a tincture, you could probably wash for a really long time and get a much larger yield and knock some of those heads that otherwise would never come off.
I was just imagining what those actual plants would look like that actually have grape size. Can you imagine the size of an actual plant?
Yeah, I mean, come on, Sam, we got to get you out of retirement, man.
Well, I have the vision. I just don't have the willpower anymore.
I was told one of those old, wives' tales you hear in your smoking circles is that you can accomplish that if there's a particular growth cycle during the plant and you graft them together at this particular day in the growth cycle, then you could actually double the THC of your plant. I was like, good luck with that.
I wish them all the best. They're going to need help, though.
Yeah, a lot.
Yeah,
I mean, Oregon CBD is doing things at scale. I'd love to see what they do with drug cultivars if they start doing more with that. They've had some breakthroughs in terms of the things that they've been breeding on the hemp, at least on the hemp side. Basically, a lot of the work you have been doing, Sam. I mean, single cannabinoid, CBD varietal.
Seth is a friend. He's invited me several times up to visit them up in Oregon, but the whole COVID thing is sort of not. I would have already been up there to see what they're up to, but I think it's great that people are picking up ideas that I first exploited 20 years ago and running further with them. I think it's wonderful. I stood on the back of giants, and if they want to put one foot up on one of my shoulders, I'm happy that they're doing it.
Hey, Sam, so, you've made more than your share of mistakes going through and doing this, and as well as your successes. What would you tell these people to avoid doing so that they could save themselves a little bit of time and mistakes along the way?
Well, it might be as simple as don't do things that don't feel right in your heart. I mean, really, go after your dreams. Don't, do stuff you don't want to do. It's really almost that simple. Do what feels right. I know that you've had to listen to that, and I'm sure you've had many offers of nefarious individuals trying to suck you into their black hole. But, it's just because it's an easy way to make money doesn't mean it's a good thing.
Oh yeah, and being that litmus of integrity as well as honesty is why we have to educate ourselves as best as possible so that we can know the bullshit, so we can see through it, so we can call it out, which I know you do so effectively because you know from the experience that you've been through and done so.
I hardly have an answer. It's yeah, I mean, anybody who's been in this business very long has seen double dealing, bullshit talking, people. It's the nature of the game. It's kind of like a candle, and all the moths are drawn to it, but both good and bad moths. But there's lots of moths out there.
Oh yeah, I have had the DEA actually serve me a warrant at my dispensary. Don't recommend it. It's not very fun, but that's when you're doing this, you're gonna get all kinds.
Yeah, true story. Well said, Sam.
Very well said. I think my plants are calling for me, and I'd love to talk to you, Sam, about light, about LEDs, about HPS lighting, and just the new technology that is really changing the game in the gardens that we're seeing. And any thoughts on that?
I have a question. People who use LED lights, do they find that they're better for veg? Because I've seen veg use, and I agree they're dynamite. But for flowering, do people think that they're truly the best source, or just cheaper, or better light lumens, or not lumens, wavelengths? Who really thinks that LEDs are better than other systems, and they have the experience to know the difference?
I will raise my hand here because my company is using Fluent LEDs in Nevada. I have grown in various lights, etc. It is definitely cheaper. It had its own overall cost, but due to heat issues that you have being in Nevada, especially during the spring to fall, heat's a huge issue for us. So we've been able to supply our demand, and we've been in action for a few years, but we're not huge, we're not large, and it works for us. The initial thought was to be able to stack and have more lights inside, which is why we went LEDs there. But again, just due to availability of size, we can't grow outdoors in Nevada in the desert. It's just impossible. Whereas here in Central Valley in California, that's different. So for us, it was multiple decisions in arriving at that. And I also toured multiple facilities, including up in Alaska. I saw multiple growers, and I've been in multiple gardens, and they use Fluent lights, which is why I decided to go with them in the end. They seem to work, as well as I don't have a facility built out currently in Nevada, Sam, so I can say, here's, metal halide or HPS versus my Fluence. I started there because I had to make a decision because of the factory that's there, and it has been beneficial and has been working for us. So
And do you see any differences in yield or quality?
I could probably get a better yield and a little better quality, is my assumption, if I had, different lights. But we've been very pleased and happy with the product and the flowers that have been coming forward. But again, that's just my own previous growing experience from working with Ed Rosenthal and others, because I grew under various lights in very different experimental situations, from growing in socks to growing in soilless to growing in soil to living soil versus potted soil. So I have a bit of experience, but again, here it was, hydroponic and going in with these lights because of what the dictation of the laws, as well as the region I was growing in. So I wouldn't do that here in California, but there in Nevada, it made sense. And dollars.
Well, more and more people tell me that LED is as good or better, some say, than high pressure sodium or metal halide. So that's what I was curious about.
Yeah,
I've grown in all of those settings. I actually had a facility where we had LED in 2 rooms. We had a mixed spectrum in a room, and then the rest were all HPS. And I've found that certain varieties performed better under certain light spectrums and certain light intensities, and also daily light intervals. But I was getting, in terms of sheer yield, like I was still hitting. We ended up hitting around 3 pounds per light on LEDs. So it performs, and the resin's really good because you can really dial it in. But I think it goes back to what type of light you're using and how well that's built. And not every manufacturer makes the same, they just don't make the same lights. So I think that is also a factor when you're dealing with LEDs. I like Fluence a lot. I think Fluence is really great. I think they have a really nice line of lights. They've really thought about, what it means to be as an LED manufacturer in the cannabis space. So I really like what they're doing. But there's also other manufacturers that are doing awesome stuff too. I know that Johnny B's working with some people up in Canada that are also doing some great stuff. So my experience is that it has a lot to do with your growing style. It has a lot to do with the varietal that you're growing with. And then of course your environmental controls, but they're really awesome, Sam. I think the resin is impressive.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I've been looking at the LED lights now for over a year. I started growing with LED lights with Spectrum King LED in the very beginning, and I saw that difference right away with resin for first bounce. That's why I really liked LEDs, was just specifically for the resin. But as I really started looking at all the different spectrums, and like I say now, it's kind of like, what car do you want to drive and where are you going to park it? Because there's 256 LED companies that are DSC listed as of last week. So this is like the next green rush for the cannabis industry. Really, it is LEDs. For one, they're more efficient. They're growing better resin. We're getting better air control because we're not dumping with AC units and all this, but there is definitely a big rush with LEDs, and I'm kind of looking more towards those, those 16, 18-week sativas and what spectrum they're growing under, and seeing what they can do with that with LEDs. But with the far red, that's what I've been testing with the Alias LED. I think everybody's been seeing my Instagram, what I've been doing. I've seen it's probably the best crop I've ever grown right now, is growing with LEDs and really learning VPD, PPFD, DLI, dialing in those numbers, and wow, I'm just seeing.
Johnny,
yes.
do you ever grow with sunshine?
I have, but you know what? Back in the days, I used to do a lot of little gardening because that's how we used to do everything was out in the bushes, like sir here and there, like where I used to live. And those were always like the blueberries.
Or a greenhouse with sunshine.
Not a greenhouse, me specifically. I've been growing indoors for 15, 20 years, probably 15 years.
Well, the sun is an amazing source of light.
Yeah, but nothing finishes here in my backyard that well just because of the Pacific Northwest. I've always had problems with the outdoors. Definitely seeing the difference between going from HPS to LEDs was a difference. And recently I was in a place where someone was vegging with a Gavita dual end, and beside it they had an LED light, and directly underneath the plants, directly underneath the dual end Gavita were actually stretching towards the LED light. So I was just smiling because I was like, that's the difference that we're seeing right now. And outdoor resin I like, but indoor resin's always been my go-to just because of where I am in the world.
But the way you can use a greenhouse in Canada is with a darkening system. That way you use the sun, but you darken it and you can finish a crop before it gets too cold.
Yeah, I was just recently was just at a greenhouse in Roberts Creek that was state of the art, and I was out testing their lights, and they had these lights from NASA, and
did it have a darkening system?
It had a whole darkening system on the inside.
Cool. That's what you need. You try one of those, and you might really like it.
Yeah, no, I'm definitely going to be going up there and looking at this over the next year. Like I'll be going up every month, every couple of weeks to look at this greenhouse, all living soils. I stepped on the bed, he freaked out. I was like, what are you doing? That's all living. So I can't wait to see what they're growing there. And they're going to be growing sativas. So I'm really looking forward to seeing outdoor grown, properly run strains.
Yeah, I've seen amazing stuff here in Northern California. I've grown outdoors in Southern California and Northern California. Both great environments, phenomenal, of course. Southern California, I got hit with those damn moths that lay these little caterpillars way at the base of your plant. And I was sitting on my deck one day and I was like, why is my top bud moving around? And all of a sudden, boop, out pops a little caterpillar head. I was like, oh, yeah, right. That's the problem with outdoors. Damn it.
Yeah, I think the light depth's come a long way, man. I'm working on a hybrid greenhouse that incorporates pretty much everything for a year-round setting, and some really tight air exchanges for going through HEPA filters. And I really love where things are headed with greenhouse in the capabilities for what we're trying to do. At least it feels like it's come a long way. And I mean, Sam, I don't. At the same time, it feels like not much has changed, but, I think the systems themselves are amazing. Like it's pretty incredible what's out there right now between GGS and Next Systems. And
I go to the agricultural greenhouse show here in the Netherlands every year. It's the world's biggest.
Yeah.
And but this year they canceled it because of COVID. But I see all the latest state-of-the-art stuff, and cannabis growers openly sell and advertise there now because it's accepted, it's legal for medical uses, at least in most countries. So the world is changing step by step.
Yeah, we just need fertigation to catch up so we can get away from the cut flower industry. Still stuck on Venturi systems, so it just drives me crazy because we want to be efficient, but we also want to use inputs that go beyond the capabilities of these systems, and it becomes difficult, especially when you want to use organic inputs. It's like nearly impossible sometimes, especially with drip irrigation. It becomes a battle, and then now malnutrition happens, and you're just trying to. It's just it's the mechanics. It has nothing to do with your skill sets.
You can focus on the problems, or you can focus on the solutions. Because I've never seen a problem that you couldn't find a solution for. to be honest.
I agree.
That was
I
one
think I'm-
thing that they always taught us in the military is don't present a problem without a solution, you know,
Yeah, so
which forces you to think.
So my solution is we need more sophistication in terms of our injection systems, and we just need to replace them with a very simple setup that's based on pumps that are not these Venturis. I think it's a very simple fix. It's just doing it, which I'm in the middle of. So I'll let you know when I get there.
I was about to say, if you don't know what it is, then create it. So then create it.
No doubt. Wade, what are you up to with all the things that you're doing? Are you using drip irrigation? Like how are you guys managing a lot of your stuff?
Well, because of the way the California market works, I don't have commercial cannabis activity allowed on my farm. So I have personal use grow, which I'm in the ground and I give them water when they need it. We have abundant, beautiful water here on the property. And I always found when I was working indoors that, yeah, irrigation was an interesting problem to sort out with organic nutrients. It's really a challenge. It's part of why I really enjoy working outdoors in the sun. And yeah, Sam is totally right. The best light you can get is the sun, and it's free. But all of that being said, yeah, I'm still doing what I think of as compassion work. I just last night had a pretty depressing conversation with actually the very first family that I contacted where there was a catastrophic situation going on. And their son just got out of the hospital from a septic infection, bacterial infection. It wasn't clear. It's still not clear how he contracted the infection, but while he was in the hospital, they put him back on some of these anti-seizure medications. And so I was talking with mom about that and suggesting that we would try and find some CBG and I'm going to see about getting her set up to be able to juice some fresh cannabis plants to see if that doesn't help him stabilize because of the acid forms that are found in fresh juice. But the real focus of my time these days is about education. I've entered into a contract with a local dispensary and have created an education program for their wellness associates, as I call them, and a whole nother line of classes, if you will, for the public. Because I've realized that most folks who know cannabis, what they know about it is it gets you stoned, and they don't know much more about it, but they've heard there's other benefits available. And so the focus there is just on educating how cannabis products work in the body, how that system, the endocannabinoid system functions, and then how to relate to the products that are available in the California space. And you've heard me say it before, you know, we talk about legalization here in California. Really what we have is heavily regulated commercialization as versus legalization.
Over-regulated.
Over-regulated. Thank you, Etienne. Of course. Anyway, one of the few benefits of what's happened is the products that are available in dispensaries right now are among the cleanest of any contaminants, free. They are exactly what they say they are in the packaging. Too much packaging, don't even get me started. But yeah, there's products that are actually really what they say they are available on the shelf for a price. And so that's a benefit, and yet most consumers don't really understand how those products work in their bodies and how to use them, how to find the dose that works for them, how to find the product or the way of getting that chemistry into their bodies. So that's, 2 minutes of, so far we've created about 20 hours of video content of conversation, me doing presentations. And just yesterday, we had our first live class with, we did a Zoom with, I think 50 some people showed up. And yeah, it was on the basics of cannabis and a little bit of the history of cannabis use and how it came to be recognized as medicine. And then a little bit of a skim through the endocannabinoid system and how cannabis relates to the ECS. And then something about how products work in the body, all of that in 40 minutes. So there's more to come, and I'm really excited about it because our agreement with the dispensary is House of Harlequin owns all this content. And I'm looking forward to the opportunity to create more content and share it with a wider range of folks, because I think there's a real need for people. I mean, there's all kinds of information out there about how to grow your own, there's information about how to do extractions and whatnot, but there's lots of information for healthcare professionals. If you talk the language of research and science, there's a bunch of good information coming increasingly about cannabis. But there's not really much for the consumer, the person who actually doesn't know much about cannabis and would like to maybe explore the potential benefit. So that's what I've been doing lately. And yeah, I'm going to be putting out, once we get this program with the dispensary we're working with now, 2477 in Nevada City is the folks doing that. Daniel Batchelor, good friend. And he's one of the first folks. He was first recommended cannabis by his doctor at the age of 15 up here in Dr. Todd, I think, was the first guy who was willing to recommend cannabis for his ADHD. And I'm probably revealing more under HIPAA than I should. But that being said, yeah, Daniel's a great guy. And yeah, he was open to the idea of me continuing to own the content that we're creating. And I'm really looking forward to how this is going to play out over the next year or two, because yeah, there'll be a lot of opportunity there. So that's what I've been up to, and I'm excited about it. You can probably tell.
Amazing. That's awesome. Yeah. Wade, that, you've been doing this a long time, and, I think what you're touching on is what everyone always asks, at the retail level, at least, they just need to know more, from a consumer point of view. And, there's got to be people like yourselves and everyone here as well that needs to share this information. It's really cool that you're bringing it to a centralized place, and, it allows people to actually have a place to go and say, hey, I can reference this thing that Wade said and keep going back to it. Because I think sometimes information gets lost in the ether as you get new information. And there's so much new information today that doesn't really have a place, that it sits on these social forums or these social platforms that gets lost, and you really have to dig for them. And providing that home for it's going to be really cool. It's a really noble thing you're doing.
Well, we've been talking about Clubhouse here a bit. It's one of the things that my team is asking me to do, and I'm still trying to get my head around it, is creating a room to chat about cannabis and the consumer products that are available, and how the cannabis chemistry, how it affects our bodies, how it works in our bodies. And one of my taglines, if you will, is in the context of this conversation, psychoactivity is a side effect of cannabis medicine. It's one that I enjoy very much, and for many people, it's the only reason they use cannabis. But in the effects that cannabis can have in our bodies, THC and psychoactivity, which isn't one of the effects of THC, is a side effect that can be mitigated by dose, by a method of getting that chemistry into your body, by how frequently you take that preparation, and what the needs of your body are. Etienne pointed out, I think in one of the chat rooms, or maybe it was here on Hash Church, that every person is unique. Their needs are unique, and their response to the cannabis chemistry is unique. So part of it is educating people so they can find the sweet spot for their needs. And the sweet spot for me is where you're finding the benefit you want without it, while still being able to go about doing what you want to do in your life. And on that note, yeah, I think I got to be the next person to jump out of this beautiful conversation. I am stunned to have the opportunity to sit with this particular group of people. Much respect much respect to each of you. Thank you. So yeah, that's what I'm doing, and much love to you guys. We'll be
Thank
seeing
you, Wade. It was a pleasure. Well, I think it's almost 3:00 Eastern Standard Time.
Noon.
I think we should maybe close it down. Appreciate everyone that came out today. Etienne, Johnny,
Always.
Gunkman, of course.
Gunkman, thank
Appreciate
you.
everybody.
Yeah.
Marcus,
Etienne.
thank you for letting
Look.
it keep it going. Everyone out in chat land, tune in next week.
Keep growing.
Peace.
This has been Bubbleman's Hash Church. Peace.
Peace.
Thank you,
May the fill
everybody.
melt, may the fill melt bless your bowl.
I think we should finish off with
Peace, y'all.